Gotten him accepted at Ohio State University.
We are lucky to be joined today by the little prodigy himself, along with Tyler's parents, Jack and Christine. Good morning, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Tyler, most kids your age are in middle school and probably think that alcohol doesn't taste good, but not you.
Yeah, I like to drink liquor or beer or whatever. There's way more beer at college than at my house.
I'll bet there is. Your professors and classmates, everyone there at OSU says you just fit right in. You must have a lot of new friends.
Yeah, I'm just like everybody else. I go to class, I show up wasted, I leave early.
Wow.
So many impressive moments. You're active in a fraternity. You've streaked at 4 baseball games. You've broken an arm falling off a house. You've even made the wall of shame at O'Hooligans.
That night was stupid crazy.
That was a special day.
This is the Onion News Network.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is our call-in number. And guess what? You can call in, you can pick the topics, we can talk about whatever is on your mind because it is free and open phones. Kind of like it has been on this radio program for the last 20 years or so. My name is Chris. I'll be your host tonight, and I'm joined by
Lori
and Riley.
And we are here to talk about stuff.
Indeed we are. We're going to talk about lots of stuff, including, government being a pain in the butt, being a violent institution. But wait, it's a gang. What did you expect?
Exactly.
My stories are actually about things instead of stuff. I'm sorry.
Oh. Is there a difference?
Should I leave?
You just have to be different. Just have to be difficult. No, that's absolutely fine.
Okay.
There's been a lot in the news. I think tonight, if no one's calling in and telling us what to talk about, of course, we're going to talk about what's on our minds. My wife loves to watch the news, and it's troubling.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the news, and yet here I am doing a current events radio talk show.
Right. It is troubling because I get to watch it. I watch it until I can't take it anymore, and I'm like, honey, that's enough. I've heard enough. And it's usually through the local news, and like maybe 5 minutes into national, I'm just like, yeah, I cannot listen to this anymore. Or if she's really into listening to something, I'm just cackling hysterically in the background because I can't believe that they talk about this stuff. From an entertainment point of the news, I think what's been playing over the last couple weeks has been pretty interesting, with like every liberal in America losing their minds about Supreme Court decisions, and then everybody on the right losing their minds over Biden's performance at the debate.
Well, of course they are. They don't like Biden to begin with, so they're going to spread rumors that he's going to be replaced or he's going to step aside, and we don't know what's going to happen, but, he's getting old, and, I've had grandparents and things like that, and they get old and they don't perform very well, so I feel like, dragging this man through the mud and demanding that he keep running for the office of president until his terms are up is just potentially elderly abuse.
I've heard that phrase used in that same context more than once, more than 10 times. That's how a lot of people feel. It's why are they forcing him, and he's sitting there going, oh, I'm here till the end, till the good Lord Almighty, which sounds like something someone would say right before they died.
Yeah.
The look on his face looked like, have you ever seen someone like with dementia?
No.
And they get...
But why are you asking?
I was looking at Chris. But you didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that. I didn't see that.
Anyway, so...
Riley, the blind guy, just loves to poke fun at us whenever we use words like see.
I do. I love it.
See
It's
that?
so much more fun than sitting here being bored on the show. Although this show is never boring.
It is not.
It can have boring moments. Anyway.
So the look on his face, I'll describe it for you, Riley.
Okay.
There's like this nothing behind their eyes, and their mouths kind of hang agape, and they just are kind of looking around the room
like
with no direction.
Okay.
No, kind of the how did I get here and why am I here?
Yeah.
It's sort of that puzzled look, and I
It's
really
vacant.
feel for it. I mean, my grandfather, my father were, I don't know if it was actual dementia, the disease, or if it was just old age, but they both went through that. I've known a lot of people who have gone through this, and which concerns me because eventually, hopefully it won't happen on the air, but I will absolutely. I mean, my genetic makeup is likely that I will be, a step or two behind Joe Biden.
Drink 4 cups of coffee a day.
I drink.
They say that it prevents dementia.
Really?
That's what they say. They'll change it next year and be like,
Yeah.
coffee's the devil.
Yeah.
What do they say about 60 to 70 cups a day?
Your heart will explode.
Well, it seems to be working.
I mean, you won't get dementia because you'll be dead. But
Oh.
so, I mean, that's still a cure, I guess.
Hold on, I have to drink my coffee.
He's
Yeah,
drinking
it's,
coffee on the radio, folks.
Of course I am. Because she said the word. She said the C word.
I did not.
Not that C word. But yeah, I feel sorry. I feel very sorry for Joe Biden. And what makes me most sorry is that the Democrats have been propping him up. They have been saying Joe Biden is with it. He is ready to take on ready to take on Trump. He's going to beat him like a redheaded stepson. And you cannot tell me that he ended up in this state the day before the debate.
No, absolutely not. He's been declining
And it's
since
good.
he got elected. Like,
Oh, yeah.
every time you see him, he's just a little bit more mumbly, a little bit more incoherent.
Well, he was a little weird even before he got elected. I mean, he's
Yeah.
just talking about Corn Pop being a bad dude and his leg hair. So
He's very old.
To be
Yeah.
fair, I love the Corn Pop story.
He's-
I could listen to that every
He's
day.
what, 88?
No, 81.
No, really?
Yeah.
Well,
He'll be
still.
He'll be 85, 86 if he makes it to the end of the next term.
That's
which
only
is-
like a year older than you. That's pretty old.
Exactly. I mean, he's a few years younger than me. But the idea that Democrats have been basically saying, Biden's our guy. You cannot tell me that Chuck Schumer or senior people in the Democratic Party did not know the state he was in before the debate.
Yeah,
And
Of course
they're all
they did.
acting like this is as big a surprise to us as it is to you.
like his PR team came out and were like, "Oh, he had a cold,"
Yeah.
and then he came out and said he's not going to schedule any more performances because that's they are after 8
8
p.m.
o'clock. That's his bedtime. Okay. Yeah. It's a real mess.
If you
And-
can't function past 8 o'clock, you probably should not be the president.
I would guess that probably you shouldn't. Because being the president and the leader of the quote-unquote free world is a big job. And it's important to have people in... I mean, if we're going to have these positions, we might as well have someone who's competent and able to handle the job. And it seems like Joe Biden is not in that state of existence right now.
Like, what if there's a crisis at 11 p.m. for the country and he can't perform cognitive abilities?
Then the vice president takes over. But
No.
even then, she's crazy.
Right. In reality, I mean, I grew up during the Cold War. And, whenever, presidential elections came up, it was the same thing by one side or the other. Do you really trust him to have his finger on the button to rain down nuclear war on our enemies? Do you trust them not to push the button?
I don't trust any of them to
as
do
if they
anything.
have
I
a
don't
button.
either.
First of all, as if there is a button. But you're talking about somebody who has the capability, allegedly, of launching missiles. And this guy is experiencing brain freeze, experiencing these pauses, unexplainable. He can't carry out a 5-minute conversation with a camera without it screwing up. So, yeah, I don't know. So we're going to get into this a little bit. I mean, this comes to us from, let me see who brought this.
You did.
Yeah, I know I did. I'm not that senile. I was trying to find where the story came from. In Gizmodo, published July 10th, 2024.
Which
by
is today.
Lucas Ropek. The title is, Can Biden Really Drone Strike Mar-a-Lago Now? A recent Supreme Court decision affirmed that a sitting president has legal immunity. How far does it go? The Supreme Court passed a sweeping but vague ruling last week that gave broad legal immunity to U.S. presidents for the actions they take while in office.
They're official actions, though, is what it says in the Supreme Court ruling.
We'll get into all the details here, I think. But yeah, that was one thing they were very clear about. Critics claim that the ruling, which relates to former President Donald Trump's ongoing election interference case, could drastically restructure the executive branch and its relationship to the rest of the federal government. Broadly speaking, the Trump versus United States ruling states that there are different types of legal immunity, both, quote, absolute, unquote, and, quote, presumptive, unquote, that a U.S. president enjoys while in office. If the president commits a crime while engaged in his, quote, official, unquote, duties, he can be designated legally immune for his actions and will not be prosecuted. The Supreme Court's decision has obviously confused a lot of people given the vagueness of its mandate and the inability of the court itself to explain what exactly it just did. Indeed, the question of what counts as, quote, official, unquote, activity and when it can be accurately construed as such is sure to be the terrain of legal battles for years to come. And I think that's kind of what I got from the ruling. They just said, if it's official, that's fine, but he does have, presumptive immunity for, less than official. I mean, it was confusing.
They said that there's presumptive immunity for less than official. I didn't hear any of that.
No, I'm paraphrasing that. I just heard going from what I read.
I just heard that it was for official business. Like if he decided to genocide a country on official business.
Which presidents have done from time to time.
It happens.
They have.
Yes, every once in a while you just got to genocide a whole country.
Well, even just a few people to get it out of your system.
I mean, there is precedent for this. There is historical context for nations genociding nations. I mean, it happens in the Bible where the Jews genocide a whole group of people in the name of their God. But
I thought that was like last month. And not in the Bible.
That too.
Oh.
That too.
So, but it's not that they can, blow up the houses of their political opponents. And people saying things like that, like all these alarmists are like, oh, he's going to blow up Mar-a-Lago. He's going to do whatever silly thing that has nothing to do with the ruling, are weakening their own position by not making coherent arguments against it.
Let's let these insane liberals continue with their argument.
Yeah.
And see if something falls.
That's fine. It's weaken your arguments. It's that's what you're doing, though.
Conservative justices seem to see the decision as a sensible way to protect the powers of the executive branch. Hold on. Is that a conservative thing? Protect the powers of the executive branch?
I thought they were small government.
In all my years as a conservative, I never felt the need to protect the powers of the executive branch, while liberal justices are much more alarmed. Most notably, dissenting Justice Sonia Sotomayor has given some frightening examples of what she claims will be possible under the court's ruling. Quote, ordering the Navy's SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival. Quote, question, immune. Organize a military coup to hold on to power? Immune. Take a bribe in exchange for a pardon? Immune, unquote, she said. Sotomayor's SEAL Team 6 example in particular has fueled online claims that a president can now order summary killings of political rivals and Americans. Is this really true, though? Under the new SCOTUS ruling, which is what's to stop Joe Biden from designating his current political rival, Donald Trump, quote, an enemy of the state, unquote, and identifying his residence, Mar-a-Lago, as a haven for terrorist activity, unquote. Hasn't the court handed the president a license to drone his enemies with only the flimsiest of pretexts? We asked some legal experts about this absurd hypothetical scenario, and the result was not super comforting. Indeed, everyone seemed to have a slightly different opinion. Well, that's good. There's some question about whether the president can just randomly murder people, but
I don't think there should be a question, because the president shouldn't just randomly murder people in his own country.
well,
So I would assume he would have to prove that there's validity behind his drone strike on Mar-a-Lago, but that doesn't mean anything because they proved, heavy quotation marks, about lots of things that didn't actually happen.
Like January 6th.
Lots of things. There's
what
too
if
big
he
of a
were-
list.
What if he were hiding January 6th people in Mar-a-Lago? I mean, certainly liberals would support a drone strike if it were to get
They're really blood
January 6th
hungry.
people.
Why is everybody so blood hungry all the time?
Because they want justice. They want justice. They
That's
want to
not
make
what
sure
that
they
is.
feel good, because justice feels good.
The story continues. It should be noted that it's currently already legal for the president to order drone strikes against American citizens.
Yeah, they bombed. Was it Chicago?
Well, before
They didn't have drones back
after
then.
that, the Obama administration set this up as policy during the War on Terror, and it's only been used, quote, or open parentheses, to my knowledge, close parentheses, once in the highly controversial operation that killed religious cleric Anwar al-Awlaki and Islamist blogger Samir Khan, both of whom were U.S. citizens and both of whom, according to the government, were high-level members of al-Qaeda. Still, even if the law has seen limited use, critics say the Obama White House set a dangerous legal precedent that tramples on constitutional rights and could be abused in the future.
Okay, but before Obama, in like the 80s, I think it was the 80s, they bombed a whole city block in Chicago, I believe it was.
There have been, Chicago, Philadelphia. There was everything that happened around the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago. But then it was basically a firebombing in Philadelphia of a black neighborhood.
So it sounds like there was no precedent set by Obama, but that's just like business as usual. It sounds to me.
I think they're trying to focus all of this on actions that the president could take or what legal. But yeah, I agree. There have been many, and we could go back to the Indians and genocides perpetrated on them.
Yeah, I was just meaning like attacks on U.S. citizens.
Right.
Like it has happened previously.
Yeah.
It's not a new thing.
Yeah, it's nothing new in this country. Jeff Raj, a senior research fellow with the Global and National Security Institute of the University of Southern Florida, said that the drone policy that was used against al-Awlaki and Khan involved, quote, murky constitutional law elements, unquote, and was carried out in a way that backed transparency for both the public and the courts. Raj described this policy as an example of, quote, executive fiat, unquote, that was left, quote, up to the discretion of the president, unquote, and that lacked sufficient judicial input. So, indeed, the legal bedrock of the Obama policy is difficult to understand at first. It finds as its basis the authorization for the use of military force, AUMF, the law adopted in the wake of the 9/11 terrorist attacks that legalized many aspects of the global war on terror. As part of those AUMF powers, the Obama administration claimed in 2011 the legal right to take out threats to America's homeland, including U.S. citizens, without constitutional concerns like due process. I think that's a very accurate and telling story. And what drives me nuts is these, findings, these precedents by previous bad actors like Obama in this example, are that it's just seen by the next president to sit in the chair that, well, Obama did it, I guess I can do it. Or if Trump spent $8 trillion, Biden can come into office and say, well, he spent like $8 trillion. Nobody's going to mind if I just spend $6 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or another $8 trillion or $10 trillion.
Right. It's insanity writ large.
I think the issue here for me is that when you have people who have the power to kill, they're going to abuse that power no matter who it is. Like, for example, if Donald Trump chose to kill U.S. citizens, which he could, he very might well do that. And the left will be absolutely afraid of him doing that. But, if their favorite guy gets in power, the right is going to be afraid the same way the left are afraid when their least favorite guy's in power. And so it's not the power that's the problem. It's not the people that's the problem. It's the power. It's the power that must be removed. We have to stop having this contest between crazy people to rule other people. It's just insanity that we keep doing this to ourselves.
I don't know that there's anyone who would run for president that isn't insane.
I don't either.
You could just say a psychopath.
Yeah.
They have psychopathic tendencies. They feel that, and that's not using it as a pejorative. That's saying that this is a fairly accurate psychological description of people who tend to run for high office.
I was using it as a pejorative. They're all insane.
I know you are, but I guess what I'm saying is psychiatrists do that to describe certain types of people, and they aren't all evil. All politicians are.
Maybe they're just real good at holding it in, holding the evil in.
They haven't killed anyone yet.
Well, I just want to emphasize the fact that you said all politicians are evil, Chris, and I agree to some extent. Like, there may be some good politicians out there, but they're not going to be voted into any major power positions because they're honest people. And, the political world, especially in national politics, is not like honest people. I mean, someone may appear to be honest and be a quote-unquote good person, but the reality is they may have some dark secrets inside their minds that they don't want the people to know, so they hide very well.
And to be clear, I mean, I'm not talking about somebody in New Hampshire or in Idaho running for local city council or wanting to be on their school board. There may be a little element of that. But for people who actively seek to be the leader of the free world, that's definitely something above and beyond. People who aspire to the Club of 100, the U.S. Senate, and I don't know how else you can get results that are not somewhat psychopathic out of these people. We were talking about the AUMF. The Obama administration claimed that they could take out threats in the homeland, including U.S. citizens. I don't know. What do you think? 603-283-6160 is the call-in number. This is Free Talk Live.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. Forkfest.party.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. As US President Joe Biden hosts a summit of NATO leaders in Washington, one of the country's most powerful Democrats is indicating that the discussion about the future of his presidential re-election bid is not yet over. Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, says Democrats should allow the president the opportunity to lead the NATO meetings and then return to the debate over the future of his candidacy. FSN's Washington correspondent Simon Marks reports.
Appearing on MSNBC, Nancy Pelosi appeared to ignore the fact that the president says his mind is made up and he's staying in the race.
It's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short.
But not that short, because she indicated Democrats should ease off while the president is hosting more than 30 world leaders at the NATO summit.
Let him deal with this NATO conference. This is a very big deal. Let's just hold off. Whatever you're thinking, either tell somebody privately, but you don't have to put that out on the table.
The Biden re-election campaign will view Mrs. Pelosi's comments with horror, fearing that she is no longer firmly adhering herself to the president's train.
Meanwhile, the first full day of the NATO summit is underway in Washington, D.C. The military alliance has pledged more support for Ukraine, including 5 additional missile interception systems. The announcement comes after Russia launched deadly strikes on Ukraine, including on a children's hospital in the capital. FSN's Megumi Lim reports from Kiev.
The statement issued by the White House said the U.S., Germany and Romania will provide Ukraine with additional Patriot batteries, and the Netherlands will provide components to operate one other Patriot battery. Italy will be providing another SAMP-T air defense system, while countries like Canada, Norway, Spain and the UK will be contributing dozens of tactical air defense systems to Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden called it a historic donation of air defense equipment. Megumi Lim in Kiev.
US lawmakers on Wednesday are voting on a bill banning non-citizens from taking part in federal elections, something which is already illegal. Democrats, though, say the measure is unnecessary and designed to sow distrust among voters. FSN's Sally Patterson has more.
At a news conference on Tuesday, US House Speaker Mike Johnson said, quote, "Many of the Democrats want all of these illegals to participate in our federal elections. They want them to vote." That's a line being peddled by Donald Trump as well in his campaign against the unprecedented levels of undocumented migrants entering the United States through Mexico. In the draft Republican platform published on Monday ahead of the GOP convention, it says the party will implement measures to secure our elections.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is our number to call. That's where you need to call to get on the air, to get on the radio, to tell us what's on your mind. In the meantime, we're going to talk about the possibility of Joe Biden just drone striking Mar-a-Lago, just for the heck of it.
I personally don't think that would happen, but, you know.
Well, I don't know. He doesn't seem like he's really with it. I mean, how close do people follow directions from the President of the United States, who is the head of the executive branch, right? He is at the very top. Any order given by a president must be followed. I mean, isn't that what you've always seen in the movies? If the president says it, you got to do it.
Yeah, like in the movies, but that's not real, though.
Movies aren't real life, Chris.
Well, they're as real as Joe Biden being really in control.
Yeah.
To me.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I don't know. They made all these decisions now about how things are decided. So I don't know how it's going to work now, but
I don't believe it would happen either. I think it would be, if nothing else would prevent it, it would be political suicide. And no politician wants to commit political suicide. Joe Biden, what's left of him, certainly does not want that to be his legacy. I don't think. But again, we're talking about psychopaths. So I don't know. I mean, maybe at some point some president snaps, whether it's whether it's Biden, whether it's Trump, whoever.
Or whether a civil war breaks out.
Well, we can hope. Quit getting my hopes up.
But I don't know. I mean, there's part of me that would be really interested to see what happens in America when a civil war breaks out. But then there's a part of me that says, I don't want a civil war because I don't want to see a lot of people die.
And I don't want that either. The movie Civil War made a lot of headlines over the summer and became very popular. And I was thinking that's the last thing on earth I would ever want to see, because it would bring back things that we heard about the first American Civil War.
What is this movie?
Civil War.
I'm not down or hip or anything like that.
By Alex Garland.
Is it like about a current Civil War theory thing?
What it really is about is a group of journalists covering the Civil War that has transpired in America. And like in this universe, that's currently going on.
Oh, okay.
And they're photojournalists and regular print journalists, and they're trying to
like a modern
get
day
the story as as Washington falls. As Washington, D.C. falls and the president finally gets thrown out of office.
I don't know. That sounds good.
Which was the inspiration for me watching it. But I think back to what I've heard of the original Civil War. I was very young then, so I don't remember everything that happened. But they talked about, brother fighting brother.
Yeah.
And
martial law and the president taking so much power for himself.
Yeah, which Lincoln did. And I'd love to have that discussion some night.
Do you think that if there were to be a civil war now, brother would fight brother? I don't think so. I think that if it ever came to the point where there was an insurgence, it would be the people fight the government.
I think so too. And I think that's pretty much how Alex Garland's film portrayed things. It ended up being a couple states, California and Texas, banded together to resist an overreaching federal government. Mm-hmm. And then the Florida contingent came in and weighed in on it. So it was basically those three states that were trying to take back the country.
It's always Florida.
I thought it was and I can tell that Alex Garland was very sensitive on this. It's like you never learn exactly what happened and what transpired. Here you had Texas and California banded together, which in our world are probably two of the most diametrically opposed states in the country.
Yeah, we don't think that would ever happen because California, or some people would call it California, is one of these leftist outposts where they claim to love freedom so much. We're going to give the worker $20 an hour,
right?
And things like that, and it's going to be the bastion of great government and everything, except no, it's turning out to be a hellscape.
And you have an active secessionist group in Texas, not to be outdone by the active secessionist groups in California.
Right.
They both have active plans to try to get them out of the union, and I support that too. I hope them both the best.
I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening without a fight.
Yeah.
They're too big. They're too big of a part of the country.
I agree.
For the government to let them go easily.
Yeah, California is one of the largest economies, or should be one of the largest economies in the United States.
Mm-hmm. And so is Texas. Texas is a huge economy. I understand what you're saying, and what people from both of those movements are saying. Yes, we are that big. Yes, we don't need money from Washington.
Right, Washington needs the money from them.
Right. And we can work out. I like a lot of what I hear from the Texas folks in talking about, this basically comes down to spreadsheeting out all the assets and who gets what. It's almost like a divorce separation.
They're going to pay their exit fees.
Right. Well, they would do that, but in return, they would expect things too. And I don't know. At some point, some state is going to secede. I feel that in my heart. I hope I'd love it to be New Hampshire. My gut feeling is it will take somebody else making a bigger step before we can get there. I just don't see it in New Hampshire's politics to want to be the first one to jump.
I think New Hampshire would have an easier time because we're small and less
So much
population.
easier
They'd let us
time,
go
but-
easier.
I agree.
I agree, but the thing is that I agree with Chris that I don't think New Hampshire would want to be the first because, like Chris said, it's not in the nature of New Hampshire politics to be the first. Yes, we do have a small, active New Hampshire independence movement here, but it's not big enough to say that we are going to be the freest state in the United States and we are going to leave and become our own republic or whatever.
Yeah, it's ridiculousness. And, well, let's get back to this story. I want to see where this guy goes with this. He was talking about the al-Awlaki killing and Obama's move to make that Obama setting the precedent that it's okay to drone strike your own people. In the wake of al-Awlaki's killing and after much acrimony from civil rights groups, the Obama White House released a redacted version of its policy. The document states that in the event, quote, that the suspect has been nominated as a terrorist threat is a U.S. person, DOJ shall conduct a legal analysis to ensure that the operation may be conducted consistent with the laws and Constitution of the United States, unquote.
Because those guys are honest and trustworthy.
Oh, yeah, so honest and trustworthy.
Right. It also lays out a set of stipulations for what constitutes, what conditions must be met before the target can be, quote, taken out, unquote. Well, you should all feel so much better about that now. The redacted parts read the preconditions set forth in section 1. I'm not even going to read all this. It talks about the use of legal force and you're going to try to ensure that nearby non-combatants will not be injured or killed.
Yeah, okay.
And we'll try.
Yeah.
We'll really try hard.
We'll do our best.
We'll
That's all we can do.
Not effectively address the threats of
But we
US
don't know if we're
persons.
going to kill you.
Quote, assessments that, it's just legal mumbo jumbo to try to cover their own butts as they go to kill a U.S. citizen and claim that because of this, the fact that they are a member of a terrorist organization, it's absolutely legal and you don't need to go to any pesky things like, a judge.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to say we followed this. The policy remains in place. Jonathan G. D'Errico, a New York attorney, wrote in a 2018 paper for the Fordham Law Review that Obama's policy ignores basic constitutional protections for American citizens and is still an ongoing issue for Americans. Quote, currently no legal regime provides answers or guards against the infringement of procedural due process the next time the executive determines that an American citizen must be executed to protect the borders of the United States. The executive remains free to unilaterally target and execute an American citizen via drone strike without the formal process that typically accompanies a death sentence under U.S. law. Protected under the aegis of national security, executive discretion has trumped the procedural due process of American citizens. So, as we debate about whether some ruling by the Supreme Court gave Trump too much power or gave somebody else, what this guy is saying is that based on the precedent and our willingness to follow precedent, you've already done away with the Constitution in these cases. People really don't have, if you're considered a terrorist, then you have no constitutional.
Right. You don't have any constitutional rights. In fact, Lysander Spooner said it best when he said the Constitution has either allowed for the tyranny with which we have or failed to prevent it. Either way, it's unfit to exist. You have no constitutional rights, and you've never really had constitutional rights since I don't know when.
Yeah, but so one of the big problems with that is who decides that these people are terrorists? They do. Who
Right.
decides that they made the right decision? They do. Who decides whether or not they're going to get bombed? They do.
Yeah.
They're just investigating themselves.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, so it's the American way.
Right. And, it was horrific when they did it. But the reality is that today we have as Donald Trump would say. We got Sleepy Joe over there who could do this at any time. Now, would he do it against Mar-a-Lago? Probably not.
That'd be too obvious.
But would Joe Biden or Donald Trump or their lackeys convince them that it is the right thing to do and take out another American citizen?
I'm sure they would.
I don't think that's a stretch.
No.
I don't think any of them are beyond going back to something that Obama did and saying, look, there's precedent.
So, of course they would, because they don't care. There are too many people. The American citizens are just a
pawn in the game?
No, they're like a product. Because there's too many people in the American citizenship for them to care about all of them. There's been studies on how large a group can be before you stop caring about them.
Yeah.
And it's well under how many people we have in this country.
Really,
so
it's
the president's
334 million.
No.
Okay, yeah,
it's a fairly small number.
Smaller than 334 million.
Mm-hmm. And so when these presidents are like, I care about the American people. Like, no, you don't. You care about the power that you wield over the country. That's it. That's all you care about. You don't care about the actual citizens. None of these people care about them.
I could not agree more. But the point, and this is what drives me nuts about election years. I mean, people are sitting here, and I've heard it a million times. This is the most important election we have faced in our lifetimes.
I've heard that enough times too. Since 2016, 2020, and now this year.
1980 and 1984.
Why do they keep telling us this election is the most important election of your lifetime?
Because it keeps working.
Right.
Why wouldn't they just keep using the same line?
Right. You've got a good line. Keep going with it.
Well, the thing is, they want to claim it's the most important election of our lifetimes because it gives people a sense of urgency. And when people have a sense of urgency, they're going to act. It's what advertisers do in order to get you to buy a product. They give the sense of urgency.
Boo.
Yeah.
I agree. It's silly. Boo.
This article continues. Legal experts we spoke to about the recent SCOTUS decision said it didn't change the already existing legal powers that the president enjoys, such as the ability to conduct drone strikes against Americans. Hina Shamsi, the director of the ACLU's National Security Project, said that the Supreme Court's decision, quote, doesn't change anything about a president's legal powers. As we've long maintained, the U.S. program of lethal force abroad outside recognized war zones is unlawful. Now, a majority of the Supreme Court has said that a president would have immunity for violating criminal laws with that same power, unquote. The ACLU was one of the organizations that originally sued the government over al-Awlaki's killing. Another legal scholar, Lisa Goteen, who is senior director of the Brennan Center for Justice, Liberty, and National Security Program, said that while the idea of killing off a political rival may be technically possible, it seems unlikely that the president would attempt or, more importantly, get away with such activity. She said that the court ruling is, quote, removing the deterrent for criminal prosecution and essentially immunizing the president personally for criminal actions, unquote, in what she considers, quote, a radical misreading of the Constitution and something that could have pretty horrendous consequences, unquote. But she still thinks we're talking about a highly improbable scenario because the president never needs accomplices. Unless the president is going to pick up the gun and go shoot someone himself, I don't think that's necessarily something to worry about, she said. He may be immunized, but whoever carries out the order is not. So maybe Donald Trump is safe from drone strike in Mar-a-Lago.
Sure sounds like it.
What do you think?
It would be too obvious. Like,
oh yeah,
there's no way that any of that would fly.
Well, it's not really. I mean, it's a golf course too. I mean, what are your possible excuses? Well, you could say terrorists are running across the 13th hole.
It's too blatant.
terrorists have set up a training camp on the 14th green.
You'd be better off hiring somebody who's really good at golf to hit him with a golf ball in the temple.
Yeah.
Like than
You would
drone
be.
striking him.
The
See?
John,
The think smart.
the John Daly move. I get it. I get you. I hear what you're saying. I hear it. We're going to go to the phones where we've got a unknown caller from San Antonio, Texas. Unknown caller, you're on the phone. Unknown caller,
On-screen
you're
caller
on
going once.
Free Talk Live. Going once, going twice. Are you there? Are you there? Are you there?
Do you have them turned up?
I think so.
Okay. I guess we don't have any callers right now.
Yeah, I guess not. Oh, well, we tried. Yeah, I found that pretty interesting because, like, not long after that Supreme Court ruling, I started to hear the same thing. Well, what's to prevent, Donald Trump from just killing off his rivals? That was the context I heard in first, and then I heard people on the left, like, actively going, like, hold on, is there anything really stopping Joe Biden from just taking care of Trump? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And I'm like, you people are insane. The idea that you would do that just to protect the potato head you got in office.
Or democracy. We got to protect democracy,
Well,
Chris.
yeah, they'll say that, all that, but it's really about maintaining power. I mean, the Democrats want to maintain their power, and
of course,
Republicans want it back. Every so often, it flips back and forth, and it ends up with the same results for the American people. They get screwed, they get shafted, and money continues to get inflated, and everybody ends up being a little poorer at the end of it, except for the people in Washington.
Well, and these things spread because, somebody starts it as probably propaganda, and then everybody else is just weak and alarmist, and they're like, oh, did you hear? Did you hear? They could just blow each other up now.
So
We got to stop it from happening.
But really, would that be such a bad thing?
Blow each other up. Just don't blow me up.
No, honestly, if the race for president involved combat somehow, Riley and I were talking about this before the show.
I'm suggesting a wrestling match.
Well, you could have a wrestling match, but I want something more.
It would last like 4 seconds.
Do you want a gladiator
They're
fight?
old. They're old men. Somebody would just push somebody else over, and then they'd break their hip, and it'd be over. That'd be the end.
All right, the president has, he can choose a SEAL team or something like that, and the contender could choose. They're always billionaires, right? They're always rich. They could hire their own team, and maybe you set it up so it's like capture the flag with 50 mercenaries versus.
I'd rather see the old men bare knuckle boxing.
I would too.
That's not fair.
But
choosing
that would
someone
never
else.
happen. They would never fight their own battles. No American president ever has.
They cannot. They're old men. How will they? They can barely walk up a set of stairs.
Yeah. I'm just. Usually in an election year, at least there's something to be interested in, and this time it's just like a slow train wreck, a train wreck that's not moving fast enough to be interesting. It's just like a train wreck in slow motion.
Trump was better for comedy, at least.
Yeah, he was.
Like
So much
he's at
better for
least
comedy.
got a lot of funny things happening. Biden is like, you can make fun of him, but it's kind of sad also.
Right, and you almost feel bad about making fun of him. Almost, but not quite.
Not quite.
Yeah,
like on the edge of feeling bad.
Yeah, I've got to say, Biden after Trump, I'm a big Second Amendment kind of guy, and I really do believe that I have the right to defend myself using whatever means I can lay my hands on. Trump disgusted me, and it was, the ban on bump stocks. It was, the fact that he did more to take guns away from people than Obama did, who was often touted as the greatest gun salesman the United States had ever seen, from him just basically talking about stuff. Trump actually did stupid stuff.
They all do.
They do.
Just in different directions.
So I wasn't laughing much when Trump was in office. I was laughing when he would say something absolutely ridiculous. And since he got out of office, I've continued to laugh ridiculously at just his comments. The whole, this is the most beautiful, the most wonderful thing I've ever seen. I'm like, not everything can be the most beautiful thing you've ever seen.
True. He likes to use beautiful and wonderful all the time.
To me, like, being disgusted by something doesn't exclude me laughing at the thing.
Right.
Like, it's so absurd and disgusting that, like, it's hilarious at the same time.
Yeah.
Dystopian humor.
And I think that's it. I mean, it's gallows humor. We're shocked by how far these people have gone to take away the rights of regular American citizens every day. And I have another story, which we may get into later on. I want to talk about some of the stories that you guys brought in. But the question is, are people really, are they supporting a fight against Trump and Harris? Is that really what this election is about? Is this Trump versus Harris?
I've heard a lot of rumors that they're going to try to put Kamala in.
I've heard a lot of rumors to that effect,
Joe
too.
also is saying that he won't be stepping down, so who knows?
I understand that. The thing that's interesting is I've been looking at polls over the last couple of days, and Kamala is polling higher than Biden versus Trump.
She's a black woman. Everyone has to support her or else they're racist and sexist.
Oh, cut it out.
That's how people think.
I know that. But that's interesting because if Kamala does slide into the top seat, then she's going to be there with no votes from anyone.
The vitriol from people when Hillary was running,
yeah.
If you weren't just like, I'm for her, because she also is a woman.
Right.
It's so stupid. I don't care.
As a woman,
I don't care.
Just don't care.
I do not care. It literally makes no difference to me whatever you are. You could be, I don't know, all of the oppressed everything. Like, throw a label on there. You could be all of them, and I'm still going to be like, I literally don't care. I don't care.
But I really want a psychopath who represents the same things I do.
Oh, yes, but that's not what being a woman voting for a woman is. Being a woman, she's not representing anything that I believe in. She just literally has the same genitals.
Thank you for joining us for hour number 1 of this night's show. 603-283-6160 is our call-in line. This is Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. As US President Joe Biden hosts a summit of NATO leaders in Washington, one of the country's most powerful Democrats is indicating that the discussion about the future of his presidential re-election bid is not yet over. Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, says Democrats should allow the president the opportunity to lead the NATO meetings and then return to the debate over the future of his candidacy. FSN's Washington correspondent Simon Marks reports.
Appearing on MSNBC, Nancy Pelosi appeared to ignore the fact that the president says his mind is made up and he's staying in the race.
It's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short.
But not that short, because she indicated Democrats should ease off while the president is hosting more than 30 world leaders at the NATO summit.
Let him deal with this NATO conference. This is a very big deal. Let's just hold off. Whatever you're thinking, either tell somebody privately, but you don't have to put that out on the table.
The Biden re-election campaign will view Mrs. Pelosi's comments with horror, fearing that she is no longer firmly adhering herself to the president's train.
Meanwhile, the first full day of the NATO summit is underway in Washington, D.C. The military alliance has pledged more support for Ukraine, including 5 additional missile interception systems. The announcement comes after Russia launched deadly strikes on Ukraine, including on a children's hospital in the capital. FSN's Megumi Lim reports from Kiev.
The statement issued by the White House said the U.S., Germany, and Romania will provide Ukraine with additional Patriot batteries, and the Netherlands will provide components to operate one other Patriot battery. Italy will be providing another SAMP-T air defense system, while countries like Canada, Norway, Spain, and the UK will be contributing dozens of tactical air defense systems to Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden called it a historic donation of air defense equipment. Megumi Lim in Kiev.
US lawmakers on Wednesday are voting on a bill banning non-citizens from taking part in federal elections, something which is already illegal. Democrats, though, say the measure is unnecessary and designed to sow distrust among voters. FSN's Sally Patterson has more.
At a news conference on Tuesday, US House Speaker Mike Johnson said, quote, many of the Democrats want all of these illegals to participate in our federal elections. They want them to vote. That's a line being peddled by Donald Trump as well, in his campaign against the unprecedented levels of undocumented migrants entering the United States through Mexico. In the draft Republican platform published on Monday ahead of the GOP convention, it says the party will implement measures to secure our elections.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. As Ukraine tops the agenda at the NATO Leaders Summit getting underway in Washington, the Russians have again denied they were behind Monday's missile strike on a children's hospital in Ukraine. It was part of a daytime barrage against cities across the country that left nearly 40 people dead and 200 injured. The Ukrainians say the hospital in Kiev will need to be completely rebuilt. President Biden, hosting the NATO summit, called the assault a horrific reminder of Russia's brutality. Hamish de Bretton-Gordon is a former British Army officer and former head of NATO's Rapid Reaction CBRN battalion.
Nobody should be any surprised at all that the Russians are attacking hospitals and schools. I saw them do it in Syria between 2014 and 2022. In fact, working for health agencies and NGOs in Syria, we documented 1,000 attacks on healthcare workers and hospitals. I know the Russians are claiming today that actually it was a Ukrainian Patriot missile that hit this hospital, but that is absolute rubbish. We all know, those of us who know about these things, that it's a subsonic Russian missile called a KH-101.
And at the United Nations, where the Russian ambassador insisted Moscow bears no responsibility for the attack, Ukraine's representative presented photographic evidence identifying fragments from a Russian cruise missile. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, one of the US's most powerful Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, says the discussion about the future of Joe Biden's presidential re-election bid is not yet over. The first full day of the NATO summit is underway in Washington, D.C., with the military alliance pledging more support for Ukraine, and US lawmakers are voting on a bill to ban non-citizens from taking part in elections, something which is already illegal. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
But first, our parenting expert, Rebecca McCallum, is here with some advice.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Rebecca. Now, Rebecca runs a popular parenting blog called Mom Magic.
That's right. It's about the everyday parenting choices that could make a big difference on our children.
Rebecca, I read the blog a lot. My first question is, who the hell do you think you are telling me how to raise my kids?
You know, I have a degree in early childhood education, but my greatest education has been raising 3 beautiful kids of my own.
Okay, Rebecca, what other bullshit do you have the nerve to share with us this morning?
I talk about this in my book, and it does take a lot of effort, but parents really should teach their child a second language. My daughter Hazel and I are learning French together.
Wow, you know, I'll bet a lot of moms watching right now are thinking, you.
Well, I get that a lot, but the window during which language acquisition skills are at their peak is really
whatever.
very small.
I wish I had done that. You win, but guess what I just remembered? You're not my boss.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is the call-in number. Thank you for joining us for hour number 2 of our show this evening. In studio, it is myself, Chris.
Lori.
And Riley.
And we have been talking about whether Biden could legally drone strike Mar-a-Lago and take out Donald Trump. Based on an article in The Verge, Gizmodo. General consensus is, yeah, he could, but that would be really bad.
Oh, it would be really bad, and really bad news. It would be like one of these other countries, like Rwanda, doing the same thing to their least favorite politicians.
Yeah, I'm not one really who ever advocates for violence, but taking out your political enemies may just be a step that the United States electorate is not ready for, even though a lot of them will say it. And this became a story or an idea because people were saying, well, I mean, really couldn't, now that the Supreme Court has ruled, couldn't Biden just take out Donald Trump?
Aren't there rumors
I'm
that...
like horrified that people are even thinking these things.
Me too.
Aren't there all kinds of rumors that Hillary was already doing such things?
She was... It seems like she just encouraged a lot of people to kill themselves during Bill and Hillary's time. But I don't know. But I do want to remind everyone that this night's Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. With fees of less than a penny per transaction, Dash is made for spending. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely accepted on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. And we're going to continue on our banter. Well, first we're going to go to the phones where we've got a couple of calls. Anonymous caller in Anchorage, Alaska. You're on Free Talk Live.
The delusion and lies are running high on Free Talk Live tonight.
Are they?
It must be all those illicit drugs finally doing the damage on your smooth-brained libertarian heads, huh?
Which illicit drugs?
Yeah.
I don't know. Take your choice. I don't know. Maybe I think you guys prefer like hallucinogens or peyote or what's that DMT, right?
I haven't taken a hallucinogen in decades. Not that I wouldn't.
Well, maybe your low IQ explains your decision making.
You know, it takes one to know one, Skeeter.
Would you stop being overly skeptical with you guys are too overly skeptical with government. and 2 generous.
No, we're supposed to be skeptical of this gang. It's a gang, dude. It's a criminal gang.
Roger Ver and Ross Ulbricht, right?
Excuse me. You're saying that people should be less skeptical of government. You're advocating that. You said you guys should just shut up and listen and do what you're being told.
What you guys are doing now. You guys are trying to portray there's a possibility that the president will use his powers to destroy his political rivals. Are you kidding?
What are you listening to?
Right?
What are you? Are you even listening?
None
to
of
the
us
same
said that was going to happen.
And on the other hand, you defend real criminals who commission murders like Ross Ulbricht, huh?
Commission, really?
Which murder did he? Who did he kill?
Yeah, tell us about that.
Replace that peace flag.
Who did Ross Ulbricht kill?
Could you
provide? Replace that peace flag in the background with a black and white American flag with a yellow line running down the middle.
Who did Ross Ulbricht
kill? That's what you guys represent. No.
All right. Evidently, we've lost Skeet.
That's all right.
Hey, we tried.
Very
I
sad.
always want to try. We're going to go to Dave Ridley, who's calling from New Hampshire. Imagine that. Dave, you're on Free Talk Live. What's up?
Hey, guys. Well, have you guys been following this? There's an alleged hate crime case in Dover, New Hampshire.
No.
Okay, tell us about it.
So this guy, I heard about it on Patch.com, but I'm going to be referring instead to the post by Dover, New Hampshire Police, because it's more directly from the source. So apparently a guy went to a church and posted a message on the front door or somewhere. He posted some kind of sign that paraphrases a Bible verse.
I have not heard of this. I've heard of like some Seacoast stuff of, I heard defacing of synagogues and stuff like that, anti-Semitic messaging written somewhere, but that's all.
This was a church. It was a place called First Parish Church, and a guy from Somersworth allegedly walked up to the door and posted a sign or like something on the door. It's something somewhere on the church, basically, that says, quote, "Be saved today or you will perish in your sins," unquote. That's what the Dover police accused him of writing.
Okay.
And that's from the Bible?
This is according to Andrew Manus, who was writing in Patch.com. He says that is a paraphrase of 2 different Bible verses. Does that make sense? But he doesn't, apparently he may not have been directly quoting the Bible. Does that make sense?
Kind of like Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy, they executed a search warrant on his house. This is like an LGBTQ friendly house, allegedly. Or I mean, I guess the implication is that it was an LGBTQ friendly church because it was considered an anti-LGBTQ message. Does that make sense?
Whoever
I don't know if it makes sense to me.
Whoever
but
categorizes certain words and phrases as pick your own favorite flavor. I don't get that, but go ahead.
Oh, I should clarify. The Dover police is claiming it's an anti-LGBTQ message. Does it make sense?
Okay. So they're the ones who decide these things.
They must have. I mean, it does. Their statement does not say this, but it implies that the church was LGBTQ friendly or something.
So all he did was go to a church and take Bible verses and put them on the church where they read the Bible, and that's a hate crime?
He paraphrased.
Regardless.
Right. Something, but he wrote that on the church.
But on a piece of paper, right? He just posted a piece of paper?
Or did he, spray paint it?
According to the Dover PD, quote, "A sign was discovered attached to the front door of the First Parish."
And this is a hate crime. They could just, take it off. And it's something from a thing that they read in there and believe in.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I understand it might be an LGBTQ, RL, whatever, friendly church, but like Gloria said, they read the Bible there, or supposedly read the Bible, and, some people say that the Bible isn't LGBTQ friendly.
Well, it isn't. That's one of the problems. That's one of the problems with the Bible, and that's why you don't have a church if you're LGBTQ friendly. But what do I know? All I do is read what's in the original. So they charged him. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, please. They charged him with.
So Dover PD has charged him. Well, I don't know if Dover PD made the charges. It may have been the state that did this, but anyway, the charge is, quote, criminal threatening, a Class A misdemeanor, unquote.
That's threat.
Here's okay. So far, okay. It does. I mean, it is a little bit of a threatening message, maybe, but the problem is, listen to this, quote, the charges include the possibility of an extended term of imprisonment under the state's hate crime statute, unquote.
Okay, but he's threatening them with
words.
God.
Well, words and God.
But God, like, you'll perish, into hell. So how is that a threat? It doesn't say that he's going to come and, like,
might as well threaten them with a tooth fairy.
Burn them down or anything, that they're going to perish eternally.
I'm going to smite you with my flying spaghetti monster.
Silly.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You could argue that it's not a threat. Maybe he's just telling you what he thinks. He's telling you how he thinks the universe works.
Oh, I could make that argument 50 different ways.
Oh, of course.
That there's really nothing to this. How is this a serious threat?
Because somebody got their feelings hurt.
I know, Lori. Sorry, they did.
He would have the guy who did this or allegedly did it would have a stronger case if he just put the message on a street corner somewhere. But he did walk onto their property, right?
What was this church open to the public?
Yeah, I don't know.
Churches usually are like kind of open to the public, and I get that they could say that affixing a sign with a piece of tape, I'm assuming, to your door may have defaced it, but man, it's kind of crazy. I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't really deface it either, because you can just like pull it off.
Well, you may have to scrub at it a little bit. There may be some residue left from whatever you fixed it there with.
Maybe.
I don't know, man. It's that's insane. I trust you're going to continue to look into this, though.
Well, I should clarify. He allegedly put it on there.
Allegedly.
I know. Right. We're filling in all the alleged blanks for you. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the next thing that's going to happen, I guess he has an arraignment scheduled in Dover at the 7th Circuit Court on August 12th. So I'm going to try to post this on Shire forums in just a few minutes here. So it'll be forum.shiresociety.com. Again, it'll be a few minutes before it's up, but forum.shiresociety.com if you want to know more.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Dave. Have a great night.
You're welcome a lot.
Take care, man.
RidleyReport.com.
I always forget to get him to do that because he does it so well.
He does.
It's iconic.
It's very iconic, and he does it so dang well.
I can't believe that people's feelings are, hurting someone's feelings is a punishable offense.
Right.
Like that's how far we've fallen into disarray with our laws.
Like, I've had my feelings hurt, and
you should sue.
You should.
I mean, I could, but that would be ridiculous because your feelings get hurt. My feelings get hurt. So what? I've got to deal with the emotion and work through it like a grown adult.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just be a grown up and be responsible for your own feelings.
Oh, Lori, you're talking crazy talk. People don't want to do that. They don't want to be responsible for themselves. They want to have someone to complain to who will get that other person in some sort of trouble for them having the audacity of hurting their feelings. And it's ridiculous. It's insane. And these are the things I look at as signs of the collapse of our way of life. And I'm not saying that in a conservative way. I'm not saying that, it's all these damn liberals, but everybody just needs to put on their big boy pants
or big girl pants.
Or yes, either way.
You're being sexist.
and if you would put on your big boy pants, but you would rather put on big girl pants, I'm okay with that too.
Just don't bother me about it.
Just don't bother me
Just
about
don't
it.
demand that I accept your lifestyle as the one true lifestyle. I mean, whatever.
And don't tell me that something I said caused you irreparable harm because you were offended by it. I apologize if I did that, and that'll be the end of it from me. You know,
I'll apologize if I didn't mean it.
Right. If I didn't, if it was not meant.
If I meant it, I'm not apologizing.
Right. I get that, but today people are just like every single thing has to be a court case, and
I blame participation trophies and such, all that culture. Like everybody has to feel like they're special.
Yeah.
You're not special.
Yeah.
Like we're all special to ourselves, but like in the grand scheme of the universe, no one's special. You're all just
We'll all become mushroom food eventually.
You're all just a blip in the universe.
Yeah.
Except for me.
except for Lori. Lori is the one true exception. Yeah. The idea that everyone, if you did anything, you deserve recognition for it. And I grew up, let me say this, I came of age during participation trophies. My son, he, you know, when he got into soccer, it was like, you know, I was, so like I had never played soccer and never really understood how soccer is played. Yet I got coerced into being the coach of the kids' soccer team, and I ended up being my coach for the team my son was on, and we got into, you know, I quickly bought, you know, Idiot's Guide to Coaching Soccer and all that good stuff. But I remember
kick the ball.
Talking to parents, and they're like, well, you know, we have to, you know, we don't keep score. And there are no winners and losers. I'm like,
then why even play?
So then what's the point of the game? The point of the game is to have this, you know, made up division, and then when you're done, you're like, oh, that was fun. We had a winner and we had a loser.
These are pretty young teams, so I was like, okay, so everything's a scrimmage and it's all just a practice. I was okay with that. If you're not going to do that, that's fine. There's no leagues, or they're not going to move up the ranks. It's not going to be anything like that. But in the back of my mind, I am thinking, what do you mean no scores? But then towards the end of the season, one of the parents came to me and go, you know, we really need to organize the trophies. I'm like, we're not having scores. There's nothing for a trophies. Yeah, but we want everybody to get a trophy. I'm like, if you guys want to do that, that's fine. I'm not really interested in this. I mean, for what?
Yeah, they accomplished something by showing up, apparently.
I think I should have got one because I was like, I had the most going on, and I had to be at every, that was my Saturday afternoon for months.
I'm thankful. The school that I grew up at, I went to public school, and like I played soccer as a kid in like 5th or 6th grade, and we didn't do that. We didn't do participation trophies.
Yeah.
We were like brutal to each other, kicking each other in the shins and like spitting in our hands after the game if we didn't win. And like it was serious matches.
And we did that when I was in school. I mean, that was our, you know, we started playing competitive sports in like junior high, and then through high school, it was always competitive. It didn't matter. And I just don't understand where. I'm sure it's easy to trace back to some particular book on parenting that drove people to just say every child is a precious little flower, and they're not. You have to kowtow. And they did more harm in that period than I think we've ever seen. And now those kids have now grown up, and now they're in politics.
So I have kids. I love my kids. I think my kids are pretty well behaved, but I understand that not everybody wants to be around my kids. But some people don't understand. They think that their little blessing is a blessing to the whole universe, and that everyone must think that they're so cute and perfect. Like they don't. Your kid doesn't deserve anything unless they actually earned something. If you can't handle your kid's feelings being hurt by not winning, then I don't know, help your kid be better.
Right. And practice more. And there's all sorts of things you can do, but just the idea that you're gonna say that you will never be faced in your life with adversity. That's basically what they were telling them, that there is no adversity necessary in the world, is Such a dangerous message.
Oh,
You're
it
crippling
is.
them.
Yeah. I mean, adversity helps me grow. I mean, helps you grow. It helps everybody grow. I mean, I moved from Utah to New Hampshire, and that in and of itself, I mean, some people might find it very easy. I found it a little difficult because I'm blind, and it's a little tough being blind, trying to move to a new place and learn everything and do all sorts of things. It's just a little tough.
Right.
But that's what adversity is for, is to help me overcome this insecurity about myself or whatever and develop self-confidence and competence. And that's what the beauty of adversity is for.
So this is interesting. What would your life have been like if you would have just had someone at your side every moment of every day to guide you around to,
I think the big thing would be that I would probably never leave home. I would probably never be in New Hampshire. Or someone who has to move with me to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And I don't know who that would be. I'd rather have a girlfriend do that. But, if she's going to take care of me that way, then it's probably not a beneficial relationship anyway. Because then
I don't know when that would have ever happened if you had somebody, you know what I'm saying? If someone were there doing everything for you, when would that ever allow Riley to have a social life and to develop a relationship? That's the point, is it would stunt your growth.
Oh, for sure.
Horribly. And it's no different with what we're talking about an adult. Why would it be different with small children?
Yeah.
It would be magnified. It would be even worse.
And thank God as my parents pushed me to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. And mine did too in a lot of different ways. And I thank them for it. We need to get on to something. So what's going on in Florida?
There's always something in Florida.
I know. It's like we don't, like they say, Florida man for a reason. What's up today? Maybe we'll just have that as a regular segment. Today in Florida.
We'll never run out of material.
Right.
Never.
Today in D.C. and today in Florida.
This is from thehill.com. Satanists in Florida offer to fill school counselor roles after DeSantis law.
What law? That's okay. I'll pick it up as we go. I'm not up to speed on this one.
It feels like DeSantis is just constantly being trolled, which I find delightful. Every time he makes a new law about something, somebody's like, haha.
Didn't think of this.
Yeah, let me point out all of the flaws in your plan. It's great. Florida Satanists are volunteering to fill school counselor roles after Governor Ron DeSantis signed a law allowing religious chaplains into public schools amid staffing shortages.
Perfect.
Yep.
My God.
What a bad plan. Nothing in the text of the bill serves to exclude us, and no credible interpretation of the First Amendment could. Should a school district now choose to have chaplains, they should expect Satanists to participate as well, Lucian Greaves, co-founder and spokesperson for the Satanic Temple, said in a statement to The Hill on Monday. That's so great.
Has there been any reaction?
I think this came out today.
Okay, so we're not far enough along, but that's interesting. People are trying to push their own personal agenda and pursue, I assume, their preferred religion, and then forgetting that the First Amendment kind of protects all religions.
Actions meet consequences.
Yeah. And again, it's almost as if. Please continue.
Back when DeSantis signed the bill in April, he described Satanism as not a religion and said its members would not be allowed to participate in the program. But Greaves says that the governor openly lied to the public regarding the situation. Either entirely ignorant of the most basic fundamentals of constitutional law or too incompetent to care, DeSantis fails to recognize that this is not the place of the government to confer unique rights to one religious identity while denying them to another, he said. If he had never said anything, maybe they wouldn't have come after him. But if you're going to, spit in someone's face, they are definitely going to show you why you shouldn't have.
Oh, yeah.
We are going to talk more about this. 603-283-6160 is the number to get on the phone. This is Free Talk Live.
Was Santa generous? I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. You can sell gift cards you're not using at cardcash.com and giftcards.com, where you can also buy discounted gift cards for almost anything. If you're planning a major purchase, consider buying now because prices are rising. And if you see PMI on your mortgage statement, that's private mortgage insurance, which you can cancel if your principal balance is below 80% of your home's value, which it may now be thanks to inflation. Ever since the COVID shutdown, we've been suffering supply chain issues, and nothing is in shorter supply than what you see in the mirror. The help wanted sign is everywhere, so ask your boss for a raise. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. As US President Joe Biden hosts a summit of NATO leaders in Washington, one of the country's most powerful Democrats is indicating that the discussion about the future of his presidential re-election bid is not yet over. Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, says Democrats should allow the president the opportunity to lead the NATO meetings and then return to the debate over the future of his candidacy. FSN's Washington correspondent Simon Marks reports.
Appearing on MSNBC, Nancy Pelosi appeared to ignore the fact that the president says his mind is made up and he's staying in the race.
It's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short.
But not that short, because she indicated Democrats should ease off while the president is hosting more than 30 world leaders at the NATO summit.
Let him deal with this NATO conference. This is a very big deal. Let's just hold off. Whatever you're thinking, either tell somebody privately, but you don't have to put that out on the table.
The Biden re-election campaign will view Mrs. Pelosi's comments with horror, fearing that she is no longer firmly adhering herself to the president's train.
Meanwhile, the first full day of the NATO summit is underway in Washington, D.C. The military alliance has pledged more support for Ukraine, including 5 additional missile interception systems. The announcement comes after Russia launched deadly strikes on Ukraine, including on a children's hospital in the capital. FSN's Megumi Lim reports from Kiev.
The statement issued by the White House said the U.S., Germany, and Romania will provide Ukraine with additional Patriot batteries, and the Netherlands will provide components to operate one other Patriot battery. Italy will be providing another SAMP-T air defense system, while countries like Canada, Norway, Spain, and the UK will be contributing dozens of tactical air defense systems to Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden called it a historic donation of air defense equipment. Megumi Lim in Kiev.
US lawmakers on Wednesday are voting on a bill banning non-citizens from taking part in federal elections, something which is already illegal. Democrats, though, say the measure is unnecessary and designed to sow distrust among voters. FSN's Sally Patterson has more.
At a news conference on Tuesday, US House Speaker Mike Johnson said, quote, many of the Democrats want all of these illegals to participate in our federal elections. They want them to vote. That's a line being peddled by Donald Trump as well, in his campaign against the unprecedented levels of undocumented migrants entering the United States through Mexico. In the draft Republican platform published on Monday ahead of the GOP convention, it says the party will implement measures to secure our elections.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is our call-in number. That's the number for you to call and take control of the airwaves. Bring up whatever you like. We're just here to bring in stories, talk about stuff until you call and spread the message of liberty and spread the ideas of freedom and why that's important. Want to remind everyone that tonight's episode of Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com, Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at libertyminded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny liberty-oriented clothing at libertyminded.com. That's libertyminded.com. We've got to figure out how to get libertyminded.com in this ad like 7 or 8 more times.
Have you heard of libertyminded.com?
I have heard of libertyminded.com.
Libertyminded.com is a great place from what I hear.
It is. And sometimes if I just don't know where to go on the internet, I don't know what to look at. I'm looking for stuff. I just go to libertyminded.com.
I buy all of my clothes at libertyminded.com.
It's my start page. My name's Chris. I'm here in studio with
Lori
and Riley.
And we have been talking about a number of things. But before the break, we were talking about Ron DeSantis and this program that, you know, if you're short on staff and you need to go outside of your normal staff, you need something for, like, what was the position they brought up?
School counselors.
School counselors. It's okay, you know, if you bring religious people into these roles. Like, does it say specifically clergy?
Chaplains.
Chaplains. Okay, so like a Christian
Or maybe they could
chaplain.
bring Scientologists, and I mean they're
Or
religious.
yes, you could bring in a Scientologist, or in this case,
or a Mormon.
The Mormons, yes, but in this case, the Satanists.
The Satanists.
The Satanists. What organization was this again?
What do you mean?
The Satanic.
Oh,
I don't want to paint all Satan worshipers with the same brush.
The Satanic Temple.
Satanic Temple, okay, which I guess is a big organization, but
I think there are like 2 different organizations. I don't know. I don't know anything about any religion.
I sometimes hear a little bit and I catch a snippet of it, but okay.
Yeah,
So the
I think there are
Satanic
2.
Temple offered to send people in, and the governor's response to this was,
It says, reached for comment, the governor's office pointed to his remarks from April. We're not playing those games in Florida. That is not a religion. That is not qualifying to be able to participate in the chaplain program. We're going to be using common sense. You don't have to worry about that, DeSantis said at the time.
okay, so we're not going to be distracted by things like the First Amendment. We're going to use common sense down here in Florida. Don't worry about all that other nonsense, like your constitutional protections, the Bill of Rights, these things that are supposed to protect you from government, which Ron DeSantis is government. Yeah.
Do you not know that Lord DeSantis decides what is and what isn't a religion?
Oh, does he now?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that
I
either.
neither, but apparently.
Lord DeSantis, rain on us blessings from on high, please.
Please do not.
I agree.
The Florida move allowing chaplains to serve as public school counselors comes as more states are aiming to inject Christianity into public school environments, including by mandating that the Bible or 10 Commandments be taught in classrooms. The Satanic
Which is going to turn out poorly, by the way, I think.
Yes.
And is there something going on with that, too, where they say that religious texts must be allowed to be presented in classrooms?
I don't know Florida specifically, but I did read a story last week, I think, about Idaho. I think it was Idaho. I believe.
Yeah, may have been a night that I wasn't on.
They were demanding that the 10 Commandments be displayed in classrooms. It's like mandated. They have
we
to.
were talking about that.
Yeah, I think that's been covered a couple times here on the show. But yeah, the idea is it's very simple to make a First Amendment case that says, okay, well, I want my Scientology pledge up here, or whatever it happens to be. I'm sorry, we were talking about Scientology. I don't know anything about Scientology.
I don't know much about it either, other than I don't want to be part of it.
Fair enough.
Culty scam. I'm going to get sued for saying that.
Exactly.
That's what I know, is they'll just sue you if you even breathe the word
Well,
Scientology
I don't think any
in a negative way.
Scientologists are listening to Free Talk Live, but if they are...
They have tentacles everywhere.
Yeah, they do. They probably have
If
some
they
people
are,
listening.
just remember, you're a horrible institution. You can find me personally.
Yeah, so is there a conclusion to this? Is it just going to court? Have they talked about taking DeSantis to court to allow their satanic counselors into?
Not yet, but I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
It says the Satanic Temple has increasingly leaned into the fight over freedom of religion in public schools, including through the establishment of after-school Satan clubs. The temple, founded in 2014, says its mission is to encourage benevolence and empathy and reject tyrannical authority, which that sounds way better than the other guys to me. I have no, like I was telling you, I have no skin in the game.
Right.
I don't care about any of these religions. I am a little sad that I'm missing out on a trolling opportunity to have my own religion. So I think I might like come up with my own tenets and start my own religion.
You've got to write the Book of Lori first.
Oh,
Yeah, you got to do that.
Yeah,
it's going to be
just
so big.
That's fine. Those are the ones that really sell. I mean, how many copies does a Bible sell each year? I mean, I don't even know how
Thousands,
many
millions.
pages.
Well, you see, if I wanted to do something like the Bible, I'd have to lie a whole bunch.
Oh.
That's the thing. Because like all these books, they're like, some guy in the sky told me this stuff, and then there was bushes that were on fire talking to me, or
Yeah.
what was Joe Smith's? There was like in a hat. He threw some rocks in a hat and listened to it.
Joseph Smith's story is that an angel came to him and told him about a set of gold plates buried in a hill
Okay.
near his house, conveniently. And he was able to translate those gold plates because they were allegedly written in Reformed Egyptian. And
out of a hat.
Yeah, well, the LDS Church claims it was translated by the gift and power of God. However, Joseph Smith did use a stone in a hat to translate the book.
And then, so there was this guy who he had like transcribing what he was saying.
Yes.
And this guy's wife was like, yeah, okay. And so she took the manuscript and threw it away. And then, so the guy was like, I'm sorry, but my wife, terrible. You know how terrible women are.
Yeah,
she threw it away. So we need to write it all again. And he was like, oh, hold on. I must talk to Jesus.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
And
he
conveniently, the translation was not done again.
It was different.
gone.
It was different. He was like, they said that I have to use a different set of plates.
A
different translation here
Yeah.
to get it again.
Something similar to that.
And everyone was just like, this makes sense. We're totally going to buy this religion because this all makes sense.
Yeah, and it's hard to look at. And now we're kind of talking about contemporary religions, and the Mormon Church I think of as contemporary because I was already 30, 40 years old when Joseph Smith came across.
Well, he was born in 1805.
Yeah, I know. I remember that year.
Okay.
But that compared to like things like the Bible and the Talmud and all these,
the Quran,
the Old Testament, which are literally 1,000 to 3,000 years old in their formation, say 2,000 to 3,000 years. Now it is approaching 3,000 years. Yeah. Comparing that against something like Scientology, which is a 20th century religion and
Science fiction.
Yeah.
Oh.
L. Ron Hubbard's science fiction.
Well, he did write science fiction. I don't know enough about it to comment on it other than it seems crazy to me.
It's science fiction. He talks about like some aliens having a fight.
What? Do you know there are not aliens?
No, I'm sure that there are aliens.
I've never
we
met
can't
any.
we can't be the only thing in the universe. That's
Right.
absurd.
So you're
But
saying
I'm saying that they didn't fight and then put the souls of the dead aliens into people.
Volcanoes.
Oh, into volcanoes.
And blew up the volcanoes,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden, all these dead souls are attached to us, and they create drug addictions and things
Right.
like that.
Okay,
our thetans or whatever.
Yeah,
you
like
find
body
this hard to believe.
Yes.
So you are skeptical.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Skeeter was right.
A lot of people like myself. I mean, we're sort of skeptical about stories in
I'm
the Bible.
skeptical of all religions. I mean, I came from Mormonism, and I want to represent it in good faith as much as possible because my parents and family are still part of the church.
Got it.
But I'm still skeptical of it. I'm still skeptical of anyone claiming visions and things like that. Not that I believe that visions and things don't happen. I'm just skeptical of anyone claiming a vision, and I'm supposed to believe they had a vision that's relevant to my life.
I'm skeptical of all of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
I can understand
So
that.
I grew up Catholic, and that whole thing seemed wrong from the start. I had to go to like CCD, which is after school church. And I asked one of the nuns one time, for like clarification on something, and she was like, "Oh, you're not supposed to really question it. You're supposed to just believe." And I was like, "Bye."
See,
I'm done.
I would rather be part of an institution I can question. I want to have leaders I can question. I don't want to be like, well, okay, just because a prophet or an apostle or a high priest or a pope or a pastor said something, I can't question you. No, I want to question you. I want to sit down. If I had the opportunity on Free Talk Live, let's bring a church leader on. Let's interview you. Let's discuss things.
Well, then my mom made friends with this born again Christian, I think she was, lady.
Okay.
And she took us to their church. So my mom was suddenly now not a Catholic anymore and was a born again Christian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just like out of nowhere.
Like
And
hardcore evangelical?
No, like it was a non-denominational church.
Okay.
So they said, and we went there, and well, first her friend like convinced my mom to throw away all of my CDs and posters and stuff because they were of the devil.
They probably were.
Oh, it was so, they probably were, but like whose business is that? That's my business.
Those are my CDs.
That's right. And so we went. And the first, like, it was like a tent meeting thing. It was outside in a tent. And the first one, they were like laying hands on people and like falling down and stuff. And I was like, I gotta go.
Yeah, that's
is
a little
worse.
much for me too.
This is worse than the first one.
Before somebody brings the snakes out, I'm out of here. Yeah, I get that. But in the same sense, like, while I have all this skepticism over every religion, and that includes Christianity. I was raised in the Episcopal Church, and my mother ended up going back to being Catholic, and I was fairly active for a lot of years. But from my earliest memories, I'm sitting there going, "Yeah, I know I'm supposed to believe, but I mean, come on." And I was never one of those people who could just accept everything as it was written. Or just for people to say, well, this is, just a parable talking about, well, it's like, well, why didn't he just tell me exactly what happened? Why is none of this written as an actual history? And I realize that a lot of people do believe that a lot of the Bible is a real history, and there have been theologians that have gone back and found correlations in the historical record that, certain people did exist. More so in the New Testament than the Old Testament.
Sure.
But
the Old Testament is just, it's the same story in so many religions, and it's just an explanation of environmental things that were going on that people didn't have, a reason for. So
Right.
they were giving reasons, and also like a rule of tenets to live in society so that society didn't fall apart with people just stabbing each other in the streets.
Right. Like the 10 Commandments. I mean, great religious tenets for a society to function.
Maybe.
Right. And they're not unique. And to your point, I mean, the Druids, I mean, going back way back, all these and a lot of the
floods.
The floods.
That
and,
there's real, that happened. The Younger Dryas, that actually happened. The Great Floods. But like that's in every single religious text.
Right.
And so I don't know how people say, yes, the flood actually happened, but my book is the one that got it right, and not any of these other books that all have the same exact stories in them. The Savior, the floods, like all of it.
Right.
All of it is the same story.
Do you believe in a higher power?
I don't. I mean, I hope that there's something.
Right.
I don't know because there's no way for me to know. So I just kind of live my life as being me. I think I'm a good person.
Right.
And that's just going to have to be enough.
You're not Richie Rich and you don't claim to be a bad person?
No, I'm a good person.
Okay.
To you, God might be inside you. And
yeah.
For all that. How about you, Riley?
I think that we're all connected, though.
Okay.
Like energetically.
So I guess I do believe that there's a God, but that God is us, and we're all experiencing God simultaneously. In other words, we're all part of God, we're all part of the divine, and we've got to be good people by serving each other and helping each other be better people over time. And so I guess to answer your question, I do believe that there's a God, and I do believe that we're all gods learning how to be better people.
Okay.
So the ability to decide for yourself what you believe, I think, is something that doesn't really happen in this country because people are just told what their parents believe, and that's what you're supposed to believe too, and that's what you're raised into.
Right.
And I think that I have a benefit there by being like unsure, agnostic, I guess.
Yeah.
Because like my daughter, my 5-year-old, we've had the discussion about like what happens after you die and stuff. And I was like, what do you think happens? And she thinks that we get reincarnated.
Okay.
Because she wants to be with me again. And so she's like, we're going to be reincarnated and I get to be with you again. And I think that that's great. And I was like, I hope so.
Yeah. I don't know. There was a book that came out in the late 70s called The Dancing Wu Li Masters. I don't know if anyone out there remembers this book.
Mm-mm.
I've never heard of it.
It must be from like 1890.
I meant the 1890s. No, it was I think in the late 70s. But it was like the first kind of mainstream book that tried to address quantum mechanics and tried to explain it to lay people, to talk about these things like what Einstein described as, the weird aspects of
time.
Quantum mechanics, things that just couldn't be described.
Like how time is not linear and all of that.
And like things like superluminal communication, the idea that, yes, some things do move faster than the speed of light, and we can prove that through quantum entanglement and things like that. We can show it in experiments. And what the conclusion of this book really was that there is so much here that just defies not only common sense, but it defies Newtonian physics, and that scientists just cannot explain, that it almost suggests that there must be something else, some other level of intelligence, of power within our universe, to even have these things occur, the things that we can witness. And they basically left it kind of wide open, but the underlying text was, I'm not saying there is a God, but we've come up with nothing else that could possibly explain this other than something supernatural.
So I think that human beings have greater powers than we're aware of. Like, I think there's a higher intelligence within ourselves, because I've had things happen in my life that I don't have an explanation for.
Sure.
Like when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, I was still pregnant. Okay. Me and Stu both have dark hair and dark eyes. And while I was pregnant, I had a dream that a little blonde girl with light colored eyes was standing in front of me. And I knew it was her. And I knew her name was Olivia. And I said, who's that? Because she was holding another little girl's hand. And she said, that's Sophia. And I understood like that was her sister. And now I have two little girls named Olivia and Sophia who look exactly like the kids that I saw in my dream. Like, I was still pregnant. There's no way for me to know.
Right.
And I was pregnant with the first one.
My mom has had similar experiences with her kids.
Yeah. And like, I've had dreams before where it was just a boring, nothing dream, like a normal day. And the exact same day has happened in the future.
Yeah.
Like down to minute, stupid details that don't, like, why would I dream that?
Right. And what do you attribute those to? That's just you think the power of, or the perception, our mind's ability to perceive things outside of just the standard dimensions that we can see?
I don't think time works the way that we think time works. I don't think existence is what we are experiencing. I think it is energy. Like, I think that everything in this world is energy, and sometimes that energy gets kind of mixed around a little
wonky,
a little weird, and things like that happen.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, that's as plausible as, flaming bushes that sprout up and start spouting stuff off.
Yeah. That's why I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I have no way to know, and I will not claim to know.
I can tell you this, I'm never going to tell anybody they're absolutely crazy for wanting to believe in what they see God is.
Sure.
I don't think Scientologists are crazy because they believe in Xenu and all of that stuff. I think they're crazy because they have like weird culty religious like rules on everything, and like you have a monetary pyramid scheme within their church and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I think they're crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they're cult members.
And I've always wondered how many people at the top actually believe this.
No.
Are they true believers, or are they the ones who were smart enough to climb to the top of the pyramid and stay there?
I'm sure the ones at the top don't believe it.
Yeah, that's.
It makes sense. I mean, it's pretty hard to keep a group of people, especially a small group of people, believing something once they get exposed to whatever the esoteric idea of a religious movement is.
Some of the cults have to believe, like, what were the names of what's the name of the cult where they bought all the new Nikes and then killed themselves?
That is the Heaven's Gate.
Heaven's Gate. Those guys all believed real hard.
Oh, yeah. They really did. They were taking that stuff seriously.
Mm-hmm. All the way.
To the that was the mothership, right?
Yeah.
They were going to make their way there, and how'd that work out?
I don't know.
Their bodies are dead.
Maybe they're on the mothership.
Maybe it did work, but we cannot say.
I won't be prepared. I don't own any Nikes.
None?
None.
I do got a pair.
Oh, you're safe.
Are they? Well, no.
Put them on before you go to bed.
Is that all it takes?
I guess. Just in case you die in your sleep or something.
Oh, my God.
We got to wait for a comment to come around, though.
Oh, that's right. There was a comet involved.
Yeah,
I forgot
Hale-Bop.
about Hale-Bop.
Mm-hmm.
Which I got confused with Bop by, was that Hanson? Bop.
Yeah, it was Hanson.
Oh, my gosh.
Maybe it's maybe they're related. Maybe it's a tribute song.
We need to start the religion of Hanson, where we worship Hanson.
I cannot.
Come on.
It's bad music.
Come on.
You got to pick better music. I can't get down with it.
Come on. It's the Holy Trinity. No, it's the unholy Trinity of Hanson.
Unholy.
Oh my gosh. Well, you come up with your religion.
Okay.
We will not make it a requirement that you write lots of books, but you got to have some symbolism or something like that.
I'll have something.
I think it would be good homework for you.
Yeah. I should start a religion.
A lot of money in it.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of religion
money
for
in
sure.
it. Yep. It would be a good side gig, and I'd look at your pyramid scheme.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you
sign Chris up, right? You all heard it. Chris is signed up to my religion, whatever that may be.
Well, I'll evaluate. I want to see a prospectus first. I want to evaluate my earnings potential, long-term tax.
Yeah.
If you get in early, that's how you get rich. You got to get in early.
You got to
get in
early.
on the ground floor, Chris.
Get in early and be on the ground floor and get up to the top before everyone else does.
Gosh. I don't know, and then kind of along the same lines, I just got done with a huge book on the Illuminati, which is talking a lot about religion too. So it's like everywhere I seem to turn lately, it's all very odd takes on religion in very odd places, which is interesting to me because I'm skeptical, and it's.
You know why you're skeptical is because you've read about religions.
Is that what it is?
Yes. I think that anyone who's ever thoroughly read, not anyone, some of them get real deep into it, but a lot of people who really thoroughly read religious texts are like, I'm out.
I can't do this. 603-283-6160 is our call-in line. That's the number you call to get on the air. This is Free Talk Live.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join today.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. As US President Joe Biden hosts a summit of NATO leaders in Washington, one of the country's most powerful Democrats is indicating that the discussion about the future of his presidential re-election bid is not yet over. Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, says Democrats should allow the president the opportunity to lead the NATO meetings and then return to the debate over the future of his candidacy. FSN's Washington correspondent Simon Marks reports.
Appearing on MSNBC, Nancy Pelosi appeared to ignore the fact that the president says his mind is made up and he's staying in the race.
It's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short.
But not that short, because she indicated Democrats should ease off while the president is hosting more than 30 world leaders at the NATO summit.
Let him deal with this NATO conference. This is a very big deal. Let's just hold off. Whatever you're thinking, either tell somebody privately, but you don't have to put that out on the table.
The Biden re-election campaign will view Mrs. Pelosi's comments with horror, fearing that she is no longer firmly adhering herself to the president's train.
Meanwhile, the first full day of the NATO summit is underway in Washington, D.C. The military alliance has pledged more support for Ukraine, including 5 additional missile interception systems. The announcement comes after Russia launched deadly strikes on Ukraine, including on a children's hospital in the capital. FSN's Megumi Lim reports from Kiev.
The statement issued by the White House said the U.S., Germany, and Romania will provide Ukraine with additional Patriot batteries, and the Netherlands will provide components to operate one other Patriot battery. Italy will be providing another SAMP-T air defense system, while countries like Canada, Norway, Spain, and the UK will be contributing dozens of tactical air defense systems to Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden called it a historic donation of air defense equipment. Megumi Lim in Kiev.
US lawmakers on Wednesday are voting on a bill banning non-citizens from taking part in federal elections, something which is already illegal. Democrats, though, say the measure is unnecessary and designed to sow distrust among voters. FSN's Sally Patterson has more.
At a news conference on Tuesday, US House Speaker Mike Johnson said, quote, many of the Democrats want all of these illegals to participate in our federal elections. They want them to vote. That's a line being peddled by Donald Trump as well, in his campaign against the unprecedented levels of undocumented migrants entering the United States through Mexico. In the draft Republican platform published on Monday ahead of the GOP convention, it says the party will implement measures to secure our elections.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. As Ukraine tops the agenda at the NATO Leaders Summit getting underway in Washington, the Russians have again denied they were behind Monday's missile strike on a children's hospital in Ukraine. It was part of a daytime barrage against cities across the country that left nearly 40 people dead and 200 injured. The Ukrainians say the hospital in Kiev will need to be completely rebuilt. President Biden, hosting the NATO summit, called the assault a horrific reminder of Russia's brutality. Hamish de Bretton-Gordon is a former British Army officer and former head of NATO's Rapid Reaction CBRN battalion.
Nobody should be any surprised at all that the Russians are attacking hospitals and schools. I saw them do it in Syria between 2014 and 2022. In fact, working for health agencies and NGOs in Syria, we documented 1,000 attacks on healthcare workers and hospitals. I know the Russians are claiming today that actually it was a Ukrainian Patriot missile that hit this hospital, but that is absolute rubbish. We all know, those of us who know about these things, that it's a subsonic Russian missile called a KH-101.
And at the United Nations, where the Russian ambassador insisted Moscow bears no responsibility for the attack, Ukraine's representative presented photographic evidence identifying fragments from a Russian cruise missile. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, one of the US's most powerful Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, says the discussion about the future of Joe Biden's presidential re-election bid is not yet over. The first full day of the NATO summit is underway in Washington, D.C., with the military alliance pledging more support for Ukraine, and US lawmakers are voting on a bill to ban non-citizens from taking part in elections, something which is already illegal. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
I know I shouldn't, but these muffins are delicious.
And we'll share our favorite recipes later in the hour, but first our guest says don't give in to road rage. Stay calm behind the wheel and coolly plot your road revenge. Danny Preston is a defensive driving instructor who teaches people how to control their temper behind the wheel. Welcome, Danny.
Thanks for having me.
Danny, there's nothing I hate more than getting cut off.
That drives me nuts. I want to scream out my window.
Getting into an argument with a stranger isn't going to accomplish anything but stress you out.
Well, how should you respond instead?
In 1996, some guy gave me the middle finger after I cut him off. I recognized him from TV. That's when I decided to become a defensive driving instructor, developing the skills I needed to eventually be invited on his show as an expert. Now, once you're there, it's just a simple matter of switching out his muffins with the ones you made yourself. How many did you eat?
What? I don't know.
Thank you so much for sharing your tips, Danny.
Danny is not my true name.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. Thanks for joining us for hour number 3 of
You're welcome.
the show tonight. In studio, we have myself, Chris.
Lori.
And Riley.
And we are here to take your phone calls and talk about what you'd like to talk about. We're going to start things off on the phone because we have someone we never hear from on the phone tonight. No, that's not true. Sarah's a frequent caller. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yes, I am all excited about this construction. There's a U-turn on the freeway like they have in El Paso, like in Texas, and they're going to bring them here. I don't know if you have ever seen those things. When I first seen them, I thought it was very peculiar.
I'm having a hard time tracking with how you're describing this. So this is an intersection.
Yeah, reconstruction. Yeah, they're going to do this whole reconstruction from one exit to another exit on the frontage road by the freeway, and they're going to add a U-turn in it, so that you know how you get off the freeway and then you wait at the intersection, you make a left.
We don't have like on ramps and off ramps where we're from, but okay. And
so this is a U-turn. It is just a lane that you go on the freeway, you enter it, and it loops around, and it turns around the other way, and it's just to do that with a car connected to the freeway.
I'm looking at Lori. I'm looking at Riley.
We're both lost. I have no idea why anyone would want this.
I think we need to see a diagram. Does this traffic thing have a name? It's not like a roundabout.
No, you know those ramps where like if you missed your exit, there's sometimes an exit where it goes up and around and takes you to the other side of the highway.
Like head over heels. It's like a loop
Under, over,
like a big circle. I know what she's talking
like
about.
a clover leaf.
Yeah,
Underpass,
she means like an exit that'll take you to the other side of the highway.
Okay.
Yeah. So that made the front page news. And I'm thinking, well, here in Albuquerque, when I was in El Paso, I saw one of those things. It's like, well, how many homeless tents can they fit under this underpass in Albuquerque? So they're going to build one of these things. And I'm looking at maybe like a 13 homeless tent condominium set up here, under these things, where that's what I'm thinking about.
Are you for or against the homeless tents under the underpass?
Oh, you know what? They're terrifying. You know what I mean? I don't want them under there. They're scary. They're all on drugs. And
Where
they
do
want to come.
Where do you want them to go?
I don't know, but that's their favorite place.
But you don't want them around you.
So that's their favorite
Well,
place
they
because
don't
it's out of the elements.
Right, but they don't want anybody around them. That's the thing. They'll have an encampment, but they get mad if you walk by their homeless little condos.
Because people throw abuse at them.
Well, you know what? They're doing drugs or cooking things in the spoon or whatever, and they're so paranoid that somebody's going to turn them in. And then
That's because
homelessness
homelessness has been a crime.
Well, no, a lot of them are on drugs because their lives are terrible.
Yeah.
So they do drugs to escape
the
their
life.
terrible lives.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of them are on substance. But but what I want out of all this reconstruction, I don't really know what the real exact plan is. But I just called the governor's office. I asked for some wider sidewalks on the bridges. Because I told them that I've talked to other handicapped people, and after they flip their wheelchair, they got 2 inches of to wobble, or they fall right into the street. So I've asked them if you're going to redo the whole thing, add lanes, they're going to put this U-turn, the whole work. I've asked them put in a wider sidewalk for us, for the pedestrian that cross over. So I hope they're going to redo the bridges that go over the I-25. So that's what I called them about.
I want to go back to the homeless thing. What do you propose we do with people that, for whatever reason, have found themselves without a home? What should they do?
Well, I don't know. There are shelters that try to put them in, and they have shelters that they built. But the ones that we have right now, the West Side shelter, used to be a jail that turned into a homeless shelter. It's so terrible. Our Mayor Tim Keller, I was told that he spent 5 nights in the homeless shelter so he could have an experience. It never made the news. I never knew that he did that. I'm how horrible it was.
I'm going to try not to ask a personal question here, but is there any chance that you would have room where you live to take in a homeless person?
No way. No way. Because you know why? Because once you take them in, you're stuck with them for the rest of your life.
Like paying for them and taking care of them.
Right.
Against your will.
Having to support everything they do. And
yeah, how are you going to tell a homeless person to go back out on the street without them killing you or almost trying to kill you?
Well, not every homeless person's a killer.
Yeah, but you're going to get into a big confrontation. I mean, would you take a homeless person that you don't know into your houses and then ask them to leave after 3 to 6 months?
We're not talking about me. I'm asking about you. Would you help out your fellow man by taking them into your home and paying for them to live and paying for their food and paying for their clothing?
Well, actually, no. I would pay for a Salvation Army or some organization. They would house them. But I get into they will never leave my house. How am I going to ask them to go back out on the street after I've been taking care of them for so long?
How is this different from public assistance? How is this different from people who get help with their housing costs from government? How is this different?
Well, how is that different? You ask me? If that is their house. They're nobody's. If they get Section 8, that is their permanent house. Nobody's going to ask them to leave unless they assault somebody or start doing drugs until they break the law. I used to be on Section 8 housing, subsidized housing.
Right.
You don't have to move out unless you want to move out, or then you have some big issue where you're running around crazy, through across the board, yelling and screaming. If you're flipped out and people can't live around you, they're going to ask you to go to a mental hospital.
So
otherwise, that is
your thing is that you don't want them in your space. What about like getting your local homeless person pay for an apartment for them and buy them groceries and stuff?
I that's why I helped out that church. If I gave that tithing to the Montgomery church, their church helps at the Dream Center, which gets apartments for human trafficked girls.
Okay.
They're trying to rescue them.
We've talked about that before.
Money, right. So they part of that, the church gives them money. So I give money to the church. The church helps that. I'm sure some of the money gets donated, items and money and stuff like that.
Right.
They raise funds. They get apartments for these women that get rescued from human trafficking. That I am doing.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and we've talked about that program before, and I like that. What I really like hearing from you, and we're always encouraging you, Sarah. You are, I feel, beginning to embrace some solutions that don't involve the government,
which is good.
I don't like when government just takes money from me and spends it on what they feel is important. I would rather spend that money myself on what I feel is important and a better way to make sure that people actually get helped. Sarah, thanks a lot for the call. Do you feel that Sarah is sort of turning the tide here?
Slightly. So she called about her church having fake milk, which made everyone poor and dumb. And so I told her that she should do some activism for something that seems important to her and get some of the creamer that she wants and take it there and give it to them. And she said she was going to.
Well, she went to a different church instead, it sounds like. So.
Instead of just demanding them to change what they have to suit Sarah.
I think for as long as I've talked to her on the phone, and it's been, going on 5 years or more. It has been more. God, it's been like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Taking phone calls from Sarah.
She's called into the show for a long time.
For a long time.
I remember hearing her back in 2016.
Yeah, and she used to talk about, I think that was when she was in Section 8 housing, and how, her job as far as she was concerned was to fill out lots of paperwork and to get all her benefits and stuff like that. But it's interesting that I'm now hearing like a different side, at least. Wow, maybe it does take like 5 or 6 years for Free Talk Live to get through to people, but maybe it does. I like that.
If Sarah totally becomes a capitalist and becomes a free market person,
it will not ever happen.
Well, baby steps. Baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps for sure.
So, since we don't have any calls right now, I wanted to read another story. I occasionally go to the Mises Institute. I do for education. Occasionally, they have good stories, and this was an eye-catching headline. This is from Mises.org. Headline: The ATF has resumed openly murdering Americans. I mean, that sounds like a Lori headline. You usually bring in the bad cop, no cookie stories, but I figured I'll bring one in.
It's good because I didn't bring one this week.
This is my gift to you, Lori.
Thank you. It's my birthday already.
Wow, that's really fast. Or is it your birthday, really?
Nope.
Okay.
All right. Many people who know anything about the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms I got to try that. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, because they added the explosives,
plus,
or BATFE, or ATF for short.
ATFEQ plus.
Exactly. Well, no, they started off as a, quote, harmless, unquote, tax collection agency that eventually turned into a law enforcement agency in its own right. In other words, they evolved from a bunch of glorified robbers with mechanical calculators and spreadsheets into a gang of violent thugs with guns and badges. This transformation became obvious to the world in the famous Ruby Ridge 1992 and Waco 1993 incidents, both having heavy ATF involvement, and with the latter even culminating in an open massacre of the Branch Davidians that included women and children. Later, as they cooled their trigger fingers, the ATF's side gig of deliberately allowing guns to flow into Mexico for, quote, tracking purposes, unquote, was exposed in the Fast and Furious scandal after 2 of these guns turned up near the scene of killing of Brian Terry, a Border Patrol officer, in 2010. Quote, a whole lot of good this tracking stuff did. In more recent news, ATF's favorite pastime has been sending several carloads worth of thugs LARPing with full tactical gear to raid and intimidate American licensed gun dealers for supposed infractions of federal firearms laws and confiscate their property.
Well, you know, if you want to go somewhere and like make money, you got to diversify your portfolio.
Exactly, Chris.
So,
don't you know?
It's just growth.
Okay. Jim Skelton had his business raided in 2021 after a federal entrapping weasel lied on the federal background check forms and successfully purchased several firearms, a whole lot of good these background checks did. Russell Fincher was raided at his home in 2023, one of the reasons being that he sold firearms without a federal firearms license, even though he had one. He was yelled at, threatened, and ultimately intimidated into giving up his license. However, lately the ATF has been having the blues and reminiscing about the good old days when they could get some solid trigger time on some innocent Americans instead of just yelling at them and stealing their stuff, because just a couple of months ago they raided the home of Brian Malinowski and shot and killed him. Malinowski, executive director of the Clinton National Airport in Little Rock, Arkansas, was an avid gun collector and would frequent gun shows to buy and sell firearms with other private individuals, which is completely legal and does not require a federal firearm license. His frequent buying and selling of guns prompted the ATF to consider him as, quote, engaging in the business of selling firearms, unquote, and therefore violating a federal law by not having a federal firearms license. What the actual threshold is, no one really knows. They thus obtained a search warrant and proceeded to serve it in the most dangerous way possible. Even though they knew his workplace, they knew his work schedule and phone number, they showed up Malinowski's home completely unannounced over an hour before sunrise, covered up the doorbell camera, cut the electricity, and then loudly banged on his door before breaking it down while Malinowski and his wife were asleep.
Mm-hmm.
The ATF deliberately created a situation in which any reasonable person would assume his home is being invaded by a gang of violent thugs.
It was.
Which it was true in this case, with the caveat that they had badges. And what would be legally and morally justified in taking appropriate self-defense measures by shooting the intruders, which Malinowski did. One ATF agent was hit, but the gang, of which there were roughly 10 carloads, let me repeat that.
10 carloads.
10 carloads of people to arrest one man.
Wow.
10 carloads of ATF agents to arrest one man.
That's insane.
They returned fire, hitting Malinowski in the head. Naturally, they confiscated a bunch of his property afterwards. Just recently, a congressional hearing was held regarding the ATF raid, in which members of Congress engaged in the usual partisan theatrics for our amusement in front of some cameras. One Stacey Plasker, Democrat of Virginia, took the opportunity to rant about Donald Trump and mass shootings, totally relevant to the ATF raid. Representative Jim Jordan, Republican of Ohio, argued that the ATF was being overzealous with its recent increased rate of revocation of federal firearms licenses, as if some ideal amount of zealousness exists in enforcement of a ridiculous and pointless licensing scheme.
You know what I bet none of them stood up and said? The ATF murdered that guy.
Right.
That was murder.
Yeah.
They went into his house in the middle of the night like they were robbers or someone there to kill him, which they were there to kill him. There's no other reason to go in like that except for an excuse to kill someone.
Right.
And they murdered him.
End of story. And
government organizations always seem to get a pass because someone finds a way to justify what these gangs of thugs do.
Right.
Anytime I hear that there's a no-knock raid, I expect there to be a murder. Every single time.
And I'm always surprised when there's not.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Because it seems like that's the perfect way to murder somebody. That's it. Like, that's the perfect way to murder somebody.
Yeah.
Legally through law enforcement. Because the chances that you're going to be aggressed upon when someone thinks that they're going to die is almost 100.
Right. And we are broadcasting from a studio that was the victim of one of these style raids.
I live in a house.
Yeah, you live in a house that has been raided.
Yeah.
I live in a house that has been raided.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. That's what we get for having libertarian ideas. Just recently, let me see where this was at. Oh, this Representative Dan Goldman, Democrat of New York, expressed his anger that they were, quote, criticizing the ATF because they retaliated with deadly force, unquote, after someone shot an ATF agent who at the time was a violent intruder. Representative Debbie Schultz, Democrat of Florida, remarked that there are, quote, far too many loopholes, unquote, when buying a gun, like when entrapping weasels lie on federal background check forms, and then later said, quote, isn't it true that clerical errors can often be serious problems that cause guns to fall into criminals' hands? Like when the ATF itself let a bunch of guns fall into hands of criminals in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was not a simple clerical error. That was by design. Later, in a separate hearing, the ATF director, Stephen Dettelbach, Jordan put Dettelbach's feet to the proverbial, special effects please, fire by questioning him about the policy of federal officers executing search warrants to have body cameras on, which were distinctly missing in the Malinowski incident.
They didn't even have body cams?
No, they probably forgot them. Lori, quit being so suspicious. Dettelbach replied that because the policy had a phased implementation, only about a third of all ATF agents have them. The policy was not only over 20 months old at the time. Just give them a break.
How convenient. Only a third. How convenient. These particular people didn't have body cams.
How much could a body cam cost?
Right.
How much could it cost? They could, on the very day that they said everyone has to have body cams, I'm sure that there was nothing stopping them from buying every single agent a body cam.
And I guarantee the ATF had 10 vendors at their door knocking when they announced this. And they were from Axis, which makes body cams, and there were all these other manufacturers all knocking on the ATF doors. We can get you guys outfitted with these this week. Mm-hmm. We can supply everything you need. And they were bidding on it.
You know, all of these body cams. So people before the body cam thing were like, oh, cops are doing a great job. It's just a few bad apples and... You know, they're just out there protecting and serving everyone.
Yeah.
But now you could go and find every single day body camera footage of people's rights being just totally stomped on. People being murdered, people being, abused by the police every single day. It's not a few bad apples.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing that came out of the George Floyd incident to me was people saw that. Everybody saw it. 603-283-6160 is our call-in number. This is Free Talk Live.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by that treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first, nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. As US President Joe Biden hosts a summit of NATO leaders in Washington, one of the country's most powerful Democrats is indicating that the discussion about the future of his presidential re-election bid is not yet over. Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, says Democrats should allow the president the opportunity to lead the NATO meetings and then return to the debate over the future of his candidacy. FSN's Washington correspondent Simon Marks reports.
Appearing on MSNBC, Nancy Pelosi appeared to ignore the fact that the president says his mind is made up and he's staying in the race.
It's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short.
But not that short, because she indicated Democrats should ease off while the president is hosting more than 30 world leaders at the NATO summit.
Let him deal with this NATO conference. This is a very big deal. Let's just hold off. Whatever you're thinking, either tell somebody privately, but you don't have to put that out on the table.
The Biden re-election campaign will view Mrs. Pelosi's comments with horror, fearing that she is no longer firmly adhering herself to the president's train.
Meanwhile, the first full day of the NATO summit is underway in Washington, D.C. The military alliance has pledged more support for Ukraine, including 5 additional missile interception systems. The announcement comes after Russia launched deadly strikes on Ukraine, including on a children's hospital in the capital. FSN's Megumi Lim reports from Kiev.
The statement issued by the White House said the U.S., Germany, and Romania will provide Ukraine with additional Patriot batteries, and the Netherlands will provide components to operate one other Patriot battery. Italy will be providing another SAMP-T air defense system, while countries like Canada, Norway, Spain, and the UK will be contributing dozens of tactical air defense systems to Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden called it a historic donation of air defense equipment. Megumi Lim in Kiev.
US lawmakers on Wednesday are voting on a bill banning non-citizens from taking part in federal elections, something which is already illegal. Democrats, though, say the measure is unnecessary and designed to sow distrust among voters. FSN's Sally Patterson has more.
At a news conference on Tuesday, US House Speaker Mike Johnson said, quote, many of the Democrats want all of these illegals to participate in our federal elections. They want them to vote. That's a line being peddled by Donald Trump as well in his campaign against the unprecedented levels of undocumented migrants entering the United States through Mexico. In the draft Republican platform published on Monday ahead of the GOP convention, it says the party will implement measures to secure our elections.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is our call-in number. You've got a couple minutes left. Give us a call. Get on the air. We're just talking about the ATF's bloodlust and how they had to go in with... So to arrest one guy, they sent in 10 carloads full of ATF agents.
But this guy could be really, 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 really dangerous. We got to make sure you get plenty of people to make sure that everyone is safe.
They broke down the door to his house
while he was asleep.
Before dawn, started pounding and making all this racket. And what does he do?
Cut off his electricity so he can't even turn the lights on to see who's there.
And covered up his doorbell camera so he could not see who was there. He opens the door and begins to defend himself and strikes one ATF agent, at which point he is shot in the head and they take him down. It's ridiculous.
All of that could have been avoided if only they knew how. If only they knew how to avoid it, like not doing the things they did.
Last segment, we were talking about the ATF director explaining why there were absolutely zero body cams, even though they had written a policy 20 months before, but they just hadn't got them all rolled out because it was a phased implementation. Of course, when the ATF issues its various arbitrary and capricious rulings, such as the infamous buttstock, pistol brace, and frame definition rules, we common plebes are must obviously comply immediately or face the prospect of federal charges, while the ATF itself can take its old sweet time to implement something as novel and intricate as body cameras. How convenient it must be to be the enforcer of one's own rules. In the end, I think the ATF is unlikely to face any consequences of note for breaking into an innocent American's house and murdering him. It is noteworthy that the Malinowski raid, which was premised on the excuse that he was considered an unlicensed gun dealer, took place roughly 2 months before a new rule was to go into effect. It has been stayed as of this writing. The rule clarifies who is considered to be, quote, engaging in the business, unquote, as a gun dealer. However, in typical government fashion, the only thing that really clarified is the fact that the ATF intends to further confuse the public and exercise increasingly arbitrary power to terrorize and prosecute American gun owners.
I wonder what he really did. I wonder what he really did to make them want to murder him.
Right. What was the thing that pushed it, made it no longer a simple case of we're going to send you some nasty letters and maybe bring charges?
Yeah.
What did he say? What did he know that caused this reaction? We'll never know. This article ends. There is really only one remedy. Say it with me. Abolish the ATF.
Yay.
Yay. I like that remedy, abolish the ATF. It's a great remedy.
I think I like it because, you can say abolish the and then fill in the blank. With,
Federal Reserve?
Okay. Yeah, that works.
Office of the Presidency?
That works.
White House?
I'm going to say Department of Education. Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Office of the White House. Yep, that's fine. Just pick one. And then when you run out of things to say, don't be sad. Congratulate yourself for doing the right thing. And that should be the end of it.
When you run out, you could probably just go Google governmental agencies and find 40 more.
The ones that we didn't even know about.
Yeah.
We've dismantled the entire government.
Let's just abolish the government gang entirely.
It's a great idea. I think we've got a lot of swaying of a lot of people before they'll ever see that. And first of all, if government didn't give out free money to whoever they feel deserves it, that's going to make it a real challenge. People are going to be very resistant to Uncle Sugar going away. So you had another story we had.
This is Riley's.
Riley. Riley brought in this one. This is, I guess, maybe a little bit controversial too, or maybe not. I shouldn't I shouldn't put these ideas in our dear listeners' heads. Go ahead.
So Riley brought in this story from NBCnews.com. Lawyer for megachurch pastor blamed 12-year-old for initiating inappropriate sexual conduct.
Well, I mean, this is a pastor, so he's an older guy. And, maybe the 12-year-old
just wanted power and to feel what it, feel like to, engage in sexual contact with a powerful man.
Well, let's say that was true. Let's say that the 12-year-old was like, hey there, pastor, whatever your name is, Morris. Yep, Pastor Morris.
I am literally rubbing my head as she's reading this as if it's just giving me a headache.
I really, really find you so attractive, I can't help myself. He then can be like, get out of here, 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Like any normal human being would do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not interested in performing a pedophilic act with you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No.
Get out of here. Where are your parents?
Right. But that didn't happen.
That did not happen.
Okay.
Letter sent in 2007 by a lawyer for Robert Morris shed light on how the pastor explained his past sexual behavior with a child and who else might have known about it. In 1982, Pastor Robert Morris was a 21-year-old husband and father who traveled the country telling young people about Jesus. Cindy Clemashere was a 12-year-old girl who dressed in flowery pink pajamas and still liked to play with Barbie dolls. On Christmas that year, Morris, who would go on to found Gateway Church in Southlake, Texas, and become a leading figure in the American evangelical movement, began what would later be described as inappropriate sexual behavior with Clemashere while he was staying at her parents' home in Oklahoma. Clemashere said Morris told her to come see him in his room before bed, and she was the type of girl who listened to instructions from trusted adults. But 25 years later, when Clemashere hired an attorney and threatened to sue Morris, accusing him of repeatedly molesting her as a child. Wait, 25 years later, I suddenly have problems now with her, too.
Okay.
Yeah. A lawyer representing Morris responded by blaming Clemashere for what happened to her, according to 2007 correspondence obtained by NBC News. So listen, I'm sorry. If the 12-year-old comes to the adult and says, hey, I want to be with you, the adult has the responsibility morally to be like,
Agreed.
Get out of here.
You're way too
but
young.
Also, 25 years later is way too long to wait.
So I'm always like, part of me thinks that guy's a scumbag.
Yep.
He should have never done that.
Uh-huh.
And even if it is 25 years later, he deserves to get what's coming to him. That's one side. And the other side says, was this girl so traumatized by the experience that she couldn't say something until she was 37 years old?
Sounds like no, though. Like, I'm sure that he suddenly is now this mega pastor who has a bunch of money, and she's like, oh, I remember that guy.
Payday.
I could get some money out of him because when I was 12, we slept together.
Right.
So both of them are scumbags.
I mean, that's a possibility, too. But
I don't mean to, talk badly about a victim or whatever. Like, that was, I'm sorry that happened to you, but don't be gross also. It was your client, wrote lawyer J. Shelby Sharp, referring to Clemashere at age 12, who initiated inappropriate behavior by coming into my client's bedroom and getting in bed with him, which my client should not have allowed to happen. So at least they're like saying it shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened.
After pointing out that she was
12
and behaving poorly for a 12-year-old.
Yeah. Blaming it on her.
Yeah.
Right. The February 6, 2007 letter was one in a series of exchanges that year between Sharp and Gentner Drummond, a lawyer who represented Clemashere at the time. Clemashere said in an interview last week she had been seeking $50,000 in restitution from Morris to cover the cost of counseling. Morris, through his lawyer, instead offered to pay $25,000, but the talks fell apart. Clemashere said because she was not willing to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which she shouldn't have to.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're willing to pay her because she needed therapy, then you should still be willing to pay her and own up to your grossness. Drummond, who is now Oklahoma's Attorney General, confirmed Clemashear's description of the 2007 negotiations and declined to comment further. So this was in 2007.
So that's going on 20 years ago.
Reached by phone Monday, Sharp said that he had no recollection of the $25,000 settlement offer or NDA demand, that he no longer represents Morris. He denied knowing at the time that Clemashear had been a child when Morris began engaging in sexual behavior with her. However, the initial correspondence Drummond sent to him stated clearly that Clemashear was 12 years old when the abuse began. I don't ever remember seeing that, Sharp said after a reporter read the documents to him. I mean, it was 20 years ago. I'm sure he's represented a lot of gross dudes in that time. Why would he remember that?
So when it said how old the preacher was, when it's that first, I think it's the first
21.
sentence in 20, did it say what year that was?
1982.
1982. So now that guy...
It's 40 years later.
It's 40 years later. And this is now taking place right now?
Apparently. She's coming back.
So yeah, there's a lot of things to kind of unpack in this. I'm not sure if we're going to unpack it all, but honest to God, I mean, you're talking...
It's too long.
To me, it is. It doesn't... Well, it's too long for a court of law. Like if she were to take it into her own hands and, seek her own retribution for a guy who doesn't want to acknowledge or pay up or whatever, I wouldn't find her guilty of almost anything because he did this despicable thing.
Yeah.
But that's not what this is about. This is about he's not willing to pay.
Right.
So she's coming after him for the money.
Right.
It sounds like. Yeah.
And it's interesting that after we've talked a lot about religion tonight and making a lot of money by starting your own religion, he didn't start his own religion, but he certainly did all right through religion.
Right. After a reporter offered to share a copy of the messages, Sharp said that he did not have time to read them and declined to share an email address.
Wow.
I don't have time for that. I can tell you that the letters that you've seen, they speak for themselves, said Sharp, who has also served as personal attorney to Paige Patterson, a Southern Baptist Convention leader accused of mishandling or concealing sexual assaults that date back to the late 1980s. I will not amplify beyond those letters because they speak for themselves. Morris did not respond to messages. No, shocking.
Right.
Clemashear went public with her accusations last month in a post published by the church watchdog site The Warburg Watch. Morris responded with a statement admitting to inappropriate sexual behavior and saying that he had long ago confessed and repented. Convenient. Gateway church leaders initially said Morris had been open and forthright about a moral failure he had over 35 years ago, but later said they did not know Clemashear was a child at the time. Within days, Morris resigned as senior pastor of the megachurch he started in 2000, and Gateway elders hired an outside law firm to investigate the matter. Lawrence Swicegood, a Gateway spokesperson, said church leaders had not seen the 2007 letters between Drummond and Sharp. Swicegood said that before Clemashear went public with her story last month, the current elders did not have all the facts. So, this goes on and on about everybody's denying this and that and this and that. So she, of course, was a victim because she's a child.
At that point, I would categorize her as a child and a victim.
Yes.
I get that.
Yeah.
And I would categorize him in 1981 as acting predatory towards a child. I have no respect for this guy.
Same.
Right. I feel empathy for the 1981 version of this girl. I feel empathy.
I do think that he, should have settled to pay for her therapy. I don't think that it costs $50,000. Probably.
I don't think that's an unreasonable settlement for covering costs of lost wages and all this stuff. I think that's a reasonable settlement.
Maybe now, but the therapy isn't now. It's from before.
Yeah.
Right.
When things were cheaper.
Well, that's true. Then actual costs of therapy and
that would be fine.
And something for damages. I think that she
damages.
Probably.
Yeah, maybe.
Because this sounds like it happened after she came of age. she sought therapy.
Yeah, I assume it was after she came of age, because in 2007 was when she was looking for the settlement.
Right.
And I think that he should pay her something.
And that would have
for
been
the
while
damages.
And
yeah.
she was like 30 plus years old then.
Yeah, now she's in her 50s.
Right. Yeah, this is...
That's too long.
It's hard. It's hard to think about because it's a horrible and despicable thing, and I don't care. You know, if you're 21 years old and the girl's underage, I'm still stuck in sort of that puritanical thing where I think if you're over 18, you're responsible for yourself. Why 18? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think 18, but 12 and 21 is way too big of a difference.
It is.
Like,
Yeah.
I think that it's on an individual basis, and
at the time it is.
Yeah, right. 12 and 21 at that time. Even how big of an age gap is that? 9 years? 9 years is not so big of a deal if you're like
31. It's not 31 and 40.
Right.
Or 60 and 51.
Right.
I mean, it becomes more normal as we age for those kinds of differences. But
the mental abilities of a 12-year-old and a 21-year-old are so far apart.
Yeah, but she was really mature for her age.
No.
Oh, come on, Lori.
Not at 12.
Yeah, I agree. And in the same sense, I can't look at her and say, you know, if you're 51 years old, this is not, why didn't you do this before? Why didn't you make this, why didn't you try to make some good come from a bad situation by, you know, letting people know about what happened to you?
If she in all of this time has not come to terms with it and wasn't able to before she was in her 30s speak out on this, then her therapist was not very good.
Right.
Like, how many years does it take to... I've had traumatic things happen. It does not take 40 years to deal with it.
Right. Oh, my God. And honestly, how do you look at yourself in the mirror? I'm speaking to the girl, going, you had this traumatic thing happen to you more than 30 years prior. Why did you not take the opportunity to tell your story to maybe protect another 12-year-old?
Mm-hmm. And
why would you not do that?
And
I'm
she's
sure
just
there's a lot
coming
of fear too. Like, she could be experiencing a lot of fear, but like you said, Chris, why wait till now?
Yeah. I'm sure she felt like all kinds of conflicted feelings. I mean, she was 12. Like, I'm sure she was afraid and she felt shame and like all kinds of things. But there's a point of time after time passes where you should have come out and said something already.
Right.
Not 40 years later, because she didn't say anything until last month, it says.
Right.
In 2007, she came to him wanting money, but she still didn't say anything until just last month.
Right.
That's why?
Maybe she forgot.
Yeah. Maybe she forgot about it.
I just forgot about it.
Yeah.
And it just occurred to me that,
I should tell
I
people.
never finished suing that guy who molested me. Dang it. Where's my head? Nope.
No.
I'm not going to go there.
Yep.
That was, yeah. It's a horrible story. But how many times do you think things like this actually happen? I don't want to insinuate that all clergy are evil pedophiles.
I don't think all of them are evil pedophiles.
And that's not my intent at all, but it happens enough.
It happens even with non-clergy. Young girls are taken advantage of by older men all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if it's any higher, like with clergy versus non-clergy. It just seems like that is a situation where the clergy person is seen as a person in power, and they are exposed to a lot of young, impressionable minds. That's their job.
Mm-hmm. Powers of position.
Right, and I understand how these things can happen. It's sad to talk about, but it doesn't give you the right to come back 30, 40 years later and go, oh, yeah.
Now I want money.
I want some cash. That's going to make people suspect.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think that's our reaction, right?
Yeah, I mean, and he does admit that he did it.
Right.
So like it's not that I don't think this happened to her. I feel badly for her that this happened to her. And yeah, that's sad, but like you can't 40 years later come and ask for money. Like it's not. It looks bad. Like it looks bad.
You're trying to calculate this legal precedent or trying to come up with a reason why not. It's just bad.
Yeah, it just looks bad. It looks like you're, maybe you're having rough times and you need some cash, and you're like, I know where I can get some.
I know what I got in my back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Got a reverend in my back pocket.
Right. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's definitely the case, but it feels kind of skeevy.
It does.
Yeah. That's bad. So I don't know. I mean, is that just a problem with like the whole arrangement of like youth groups and, when were you beginning to get involved in the church? I mean, I was involved in our church from a very, very young age.
I think I was too. Like I know I was involved in some church programs from like 8 to 12 and from 12 onward too. So yeah, pretty young age.
Yeah. You know what my plan is? Because I have young daughters. It's to not hand my daughter over to strangers without, my supervision, to be indoctrinated and put in vulnerable positions.
That's not a bad idea.
It's novel. I should put it in my religion.
Yes.
That you should parent your children.
You should parent your children.
Thou shalt parent thy children.
I know that I went through, after Sunday school and stuff like that, it was like, church groups and stuff like that, and then church camps and stuff like that, where I don't want to speak to everyone who went to my church camp, but a healthy proportion of us were intent on using that opportunity away from home to violate some restrictions that had been placed on us by our parents and such. That was kind of what church camp was for.
That's also, I think, one of the reasons why people end up in these kinds of situations is that their parents don't allow them to be fully whole human beings.
Right.
And so they put all these arbitrary restrictions on them because they're like, I am your parent and you live under my roof and you'll do what I say. And so then they do go out and put themselves in risky situations.
Right. Or the first time they feel like they're maybe being treated by like an adult.
Yeah.
Wow, my parents aren't around. I get to go spend, the weekend with a church group or something like that. And yeah, it's a shame. I don't know. I all I can say is I'm really glad I didn't have a daughter.
Oh, man. Before we had kids, one of our friends was telling Stu, he's like, because Stu has boys, right? He has older boys.
Right.
And they were like, when you have daughters, it's totally different. If you have daughters, it's going to be totally different. And Stu was like, no, it's going to be exactly the same.
No difference.
And then one day we were talking, he's like, it's totally different.
Yeah, it's got to be very different.
Yeah.
I can imagine. And that was, I'm not going to say, however my son had came out, if it would have been a daughter, I would have, of course, loved her as much as I love him. And it would have been great, I'm sure. But in the back of my mind, I was like, phew, dodged a bullet on that one.
I'm glad I had girls.
Are you?
Yeah, because the world needs more intelligent, outspoken, educated women.
So
that
really
are going to...
nothing at all like you.
Nothing.
No, you're never outspoken.
I'm not.
Joking.
Very quiet.
Or exactly. Kind of mousy.
Yeah.
That's really how we think of you.
It's like I'm not even here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like a quiet little church mouse.
Yeah. I was telling Stu the other night, I was like, the show is perfect for me because I have a lot of loud opinions.
It is perfect for you. I love it.
And you get to get them off your chest. Well, that's it for us tonight. But hey, we'll be back tomorrow like we have been every tomorrow for the last 20 some odd years here on Free Talk Live. You guys have a great night.
Peace.
Hollywood's biggest stars are rallying for a good cause this week with the Save Our Children campaign. Celebs like Jessica Simpson, Brad Pitt, and Gwyneth Paltrow headlined a charity event to help their suffering kids who desperately need a chance to live a normal life. Angelina Jolie talked to Starfix about the charity, saying, quote, "You don't have to be a mother to want to help my children, many of whom are not getting a proper education. If you look at the numbers, 1 in 5 of my children will struggle with drug problems." Joining us now is a representative from the charity, Julie Harrison. Julie, it was such a great cause.
Absolutely. We're talking about children who don't have any positive